Members, welcome members of the public and everyone else. I've got to go through a few chair's announcements, so bear with me and listen closely. Thank you. The meeting is taking place in the council chamber at Shepton Mallet, and we have members of the planning committee, officers and public speakers and members of the public physically present in the chamber. We also have members of the public watching the meeting on Teams. Cameras within the council chamber allow us to film the meeting for viewers on Teams and also record the meeting. Therefore, any members of the public present should be aware that they may be recorded even if they are not participating in the meeting. If this causes you any concern, then please let me know now. Okay, thank you. It doesn't look like anybody's putting their hand up. Members who have brought their own device with them should ensure that their cameras are switched off and, very importantly, excuse me, their device microphone and speakers are muted for the duration of the meeting. Otherwise, this causes feedback on the council sound system. Public speakers contributing to the meeting virtually should switch their cameras off and put their microphones on mute until they are invited to speak by the chair. It is not permitted for any other member of the public viewing by Teams to contribute to the meeting at any time. Should any member of the planning committee wish to speak, please raise your hand and catch the attention of myself, the vice chair, the legal advisor or lead officers. When members in the chamber speak, remember to switch on your desk microphone so that all those in attendance and viewing can hear you. And please do not use the chat function within Teams for anything. All contributions must be made verbally. And please can all mobile phones be set to silent? And also, can I remind people to be respectful of each other and of officers while we're conducting the meeting, please? Thank you. So now we move to apologies for absence. And I think that's Helen.
There are none.
That's what I was just going to say. There's no apologies.
Isn't that amazing? We have a full turnout today. I think it's excellent. Okay. So next we've got, let me see. I think
Councillor Kay wishes to speak.
Oh, Councillor Kay wishes to say something. Yes, Councillor.
I'm not sure if this is the right time in the agenda, Councillor Cottle, but I'd like to just ask about the minutes that we are now not going to be looking at today. Is this the right point in the agenda?
I think that'll be okay. If somebody would like to answer that, whoever would.
Can I?
It's the right point in the agenda, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It's just that something was withdrawn from the agenda today, which was we were going to discuss Selwood Garden Community again. And I did not understand why, if we were going to discuss it again, we were not going to be approving the minutes of the December meeting. And therefore, I spent quite some considerable time trying to sort of make amendments to the minutes because I didn't feel that they reflected the meeting very well. And so I am surprised that we are not going to be, now that that has been going to some kind of public inquiry, I would imagine that whoever is running the public inquiry will look at the draft minutes and will use that as a guide to the items that we discussed in the meeting in December. And I'm not happy that that was the resolution, particularly the resolution at the end of the meeting that we made. So I would like to know if two things, if we're going to agree those minutes at the next meeting, if we can't do them today, if we're going to agree those minutes at the next meeting, then will the inspector already be in place and already be looking at the paperwork and already have the draft minutes in front of him or her?
Thank you, Helen. Who would like to answer that one? Simon? Or would you?
I will.
Or Martin?
Right. Yeah. In terms of approving the minutes of the December meeting, that will be coming to the next meeting, Helen? Yes, of this committee to approve. So you can, at that point, propose amendments to the draft minutes. The inspector has not yet been appointed, which we'll come on to in agenda item 5. But when they do, they don't see the draft minutes, they will see the formally resolved minutes of the committee as part of the council's submission. So to answer you, the answer is no. But
Okay, thank you. That's most reassuring.
Lovely. Thank you, Martin, for explaining that. Yes, Councillor Sully.
Thank you, Chair.
Claire, I don't like to be formal.
That's okay. So sorry, but why aren't we've never started a meeting without looking at the minutes? I just wondered what's different about today's meeting. We have we?
Yeah, but why?
Yeah, but why? Why? Why can't we?
Helen, I think that one's for you.
Yeah, hi.
Thank you.
Sally. So sometimes the minutes are not ready for the next meeting due to workload, and I didn't have the meeting minutes ready from December for this meeting. They were the draft has been published, as you've seen, but I had not remembered that, and so they weren't included in this agenda. If they're not in the public domain and on the agenda, they can't be discussed and approved today. So they will be at the next meeting. It's purely an oversight by me to include them in today's agenda. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Cheers. Does anybody else, Officer Wise, wish to say anything about today? No? No? Okay, thank you. So we're going to be moving on to declarations of interest, please. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. And then public question time. I don't think we have any of those. So next we're going to move straight on into a planning application. It's very quick. Planning application is the land at Prune. No, that's the wrong one. 5. So sorry, Rob.
Sorry, Chair, did we approve the minutes of the 7th of January?
No.
Well, it's on the agenda, Chair, so I think we ought to do that.
No, that's just what we were explaining. We haven't got the minutes for.
Oh, well, sorry, my
the
apologies.
7th
Sorry.
of January. Sorry, Martin. It's Martin,
Wasting
isn't it?
your
Yeah,
time.
sorry.
Sorry,
I can
Chair.
see you now. Yeah, that's okay. It's just an easy mistake to make. Okay, so we will be moving on. We won't be doing planning application number 5 at Marston Road.
we do need
We do need to talk about it, do we? Okay, so
Simon's going to.
Simon's going to address this one. Okay, Simon.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, as you'll see from the front of the agenda pack, agenda item number 5, Selwood Garden community application is not will not be determined by the council at today's meeting. And hopefully you have all seen the email that the Democratic Services team sent yesterday to explain why. So effectively, the Secretary of State through the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government has written to the council to confirm that the application has been called in for consideration by Secretary of State through one of the appointed inspectors. At the moment, the information that we've got is relatively short in terms of further information. So we expect to receive a further letter from PINS, which will detail the procedure that will take place and the date for the public inquiry. What we will need to do, because we're obviously not going to consider it today, there won't be an officer presentation and members of the public won't be invited to address you. What we will need to do, though, is arrange a further meeting. So effectively, you are in a position to consider the application formally so that can feed into the council's statement of case that it presents to the inquiry. Obviously, one thing that you will need to note is that the recommendation has changed. So effectively, that recommendation is that members will be asked to note that the application has been called in by the Secretary of State and that a further report will be brought back to committee once we've got further details for members to consider, and you will have to determine the LPA's position and the contents of the statement of case and the written statement that you wish to present to the inquiry or you wish the council to present, and part of that process will involve responding to specific points that the Secretary of State has asked us in the letter. So hopefully that's provided just a little bit more information for you as to why that application is not going to be considered today and what you will have to do going forward.
Thank you for that, Simon. Martin's going to come in next.
Thank you, Chair. It's as Simon, Mr. Trafford said, there's been a call in, came in just after midday yesterday. What that means is that Somerset Council is no longer the decision maker for the planning application. The jurisdiction for deciding the Selwood Garden application now rests with central government, rests with the Secretary of State. So there is no decision on the planning permission to be made. Okay. However, what the Secretary of State has said is that there will be a local inquiry held. She will appoint a planning inspector who will hold that local inquiry. We don't know the timescale of that yet. I think Mr. Trafford was trying to speak to the planning inspectorate to try and get an idea of timescale. We don't know that yet. They will hold the public inquiry. The council will need to determine its position at that inquiry, and that is going to be a matter for this committee once we know the timetable, and also once we know more of the detail of what the inspector is going to ask, because the Secretary of State in the call-in letter has raised 5 specific areas that they want the council to comment on. Obviously, we only received these yesterday, so we'll need to work on those and bring those back to committee. But the letter also says that the inspector, once they're appointed, may well have additional questions. So we need to wait for the inspector to be appointed to know what additional questions we might be asked. So that is why it's not being heard today while there's no officer presentation, or we're not inviting public speakers, because there is no decision now to be made on the application, because that jurisdiction has been removed from the council to central government. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Martin. I think, Helen, you have a question?
Martin and Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been asked by my colleague, Michael Dunk, Councillor Michael Dunk, to ask Somerset Council officers if they will confirm that they were the ones that asked for Selwood Garden community to be called in. If so, when did they do it? And yeah, can we know if they did it, please, or if it was somebody else that asked for it to be called in? Because at the moment we've had it we've been told about this in the passive tense. We've been said that it's been called in. We don't know who has requested that. So I just want to know if the officers have requested that, or if it was actually one of the protest groups, because I also heard a rumour that it was one of the protest groups that asked for it to be called in.
I think there's a few urban myths going around here. Alison.
We don't know who asked for it to be called in. All we know is the letter that received yesterday, which called the application in. We know that the government office have been monitoring the travel of the application, but we don't know what led to it being called in yesterday.
Just that I, for one, am not very happy about it. That's all. I just wanted to know who'd precipitated it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Thank you, Alison. Now, next is Martin D.
Yeah, well, the details from the previous meeting when we discussed it, we were minded to refuse. Will that be taken into consideration?
When the application comes, sorry,
no,
beg your pardon. Sorry, Chair. When the application comes back before members, it'll be a different scenario because you're not determining the planning application, but it will come back to this committee. It will be a rehearing of all material and all considerations and policy around the application. But obviously it's on record that the committee was minded to refuse the application. It will be when we approve the minutes, that they were minded to refuse the application. Any future decision, that's not binding on any future decision, but obviously that is going to be on the minutes and on the record.
I think, Mr. Chairman,
okay,
I think that answers my question, but yeah, I just more specifically, will the inspector have the report and the minutes of that meeting and be able to take note of them?
Yes, they will.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Dawn, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to know what kinds of triggers would make them choose to pull it in as for us not to determine it? What kind of things? Because when I've asked in the past, it's been a much bigger development that would be called in.
I think Alison will answer you on that one.
So because this application was on an unallocated site, it's a departure from the local plan. So if the committee had resolved to approve it, we would have had to notify the Secretary of State that it was a departure. And at that stage, they have the ability to call it in. And it's for that reason that it was on their radar, I suspect. And they were looking to see the progress.
Okay, thank you. And then can I just ask one more question? When it's brought back to the to this committee, could I request that we have a one-item meeting so that we don't have 1,000 of other things to consider, but just this special application?
I would second that.
I confirm that we will have a special meeting.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And I think, yeah, Susie is next.
I mean, obviously, I haven't experienced this before, and I don't know if any of you guys have, but it just seems very late in the day for this to happen yesterday. And I just it just seems to me a bit of a mystery. So I feel like, why so late in the day, and why, why now? We've been looking at this for such a kind of considerable period, really, as a planning committee.
I think Martin's going to explain to you, but I think we already have once, but we'll come back again.
Well, yes, as Alison was saying, we knew that the department was paying an interest because from earlier contact with them, but we had no notice. Officers had no notice this was going to come. So, as I say, it came just after midday yesterday. So it was out of the blue and very short notice for this meeting, obviously.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is this standard practice that they would let people know so late in the day, or have you not ever experienced this either?
Yeah,
It has been experienced elsewhere across the country. It's not unknown.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure that answers your question. I'll come back to you, Claire. I've got to go to Barry first.
Thank you, Chair. When this comes to this committee the next time, whatever view we might take, it's to go ahead or it's not to go ahead, is that the position that the council will take to the inquiry and defend that decision? Or will they go off on a tangent and say, well, I know what you said, but what we really want to do is this?
I think Martin will explain this to you.
Go on to answer that. So it's for this. It will be for this committee to agree the local planning authority's stance at the inquiry. Now, the council's no longer the decision maker, so it is effectively the council making representations to the Secretary of State, to their inspector, as to what the council wants from the outcome of the appeal, and also the council's view on those questions that were raised. So it is going to be a matter for this committee to formalise and agree what our position is at the inquiry.
Okay, thank you. I think Martin understands.
Yeah, different question. Apart from officer time, which is inevitable, is this going to cost us? Are we going to have to employ outside agencies to represent us on this? I mean, is it like a normal inspection?
It's like a normal inquiry. We will need to appoint counsel to represent us at the inquiry, which will be a cost to the council. Obviously, attendance at the inquiry, depending on the view that the committee take, we may also have to get outside support for the position you take. And that's because officers are compromised because we have recommended approval.
Thank you. I think, are you okay, Martin? Yeah.
I'd say it seems like a no-win situation in a way, because if we refuse this and it had gone to an inspector anyway, we haven't had the opportunity to properly consider this and give our view on it, but it's still going to an inspector. We're still going to pay for it, which is probably the last thing anybody sitting around this table would want, if I'm right.
Yeah, I do think, agree, it's a little bit strange. Claire?
Thank you. I want to make it clear on the record that it's not where we get to with this application. It's the how we've got to where we are is what I am really concerned about, because we all want housing. We want the right housing we want the right solution, but we also want to be listened to as members, and the communities want to be listened to. I think what came up was the questions about community engagement with this planning application, the relationship between an officer and the developer, which I understand is not a problem at all, but that did come up. We wanted to put a proposal to, it did come up, the question got asked, was the developer, I'm just looking at facial expressions, was the developer being paid, was the officer being paid by the developer? And my understanding was yes, but that doesn't mean that the officer, I heard that question come up. Okay, we can come back to that if you want to bring that up. I'm sure I heard that question being asked, was the officer it was asked. Do we agree that was asked? Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. I just had a no over there, and you might want to come in and respond, because I'm seeing your gestures to me, which is a little bit off-putting, to be honest, when people are saying no when you're talking. So we wanted to propose to refuse, right? So we've reviewed that and gone over that proposal, and I've also looked at other appeals, and I feel that there was enough to put a proposal down to refuse this application. It may not have been agreed. We may not have all got behind that. I know some members wouldn't have agreed with that, but we were given the legal steer to be minded to refuse, because that was going to help us articulate our reasons for refusing. Because when I spoke, it was I was not getting any assistance from officers as to articulate in the way officers wanted to hear the reasons for the proposal for refusal, which was already seconded, so it never got out there as a vote. So the next step was that we were going to work up, the officers were delegated to work up these reasons for refusal, which never happened in a meaningful way. All we had was one item which said about sustainability, and we were told the officers didn't support it. I'll go back to my first point. It's not where we get to with this. We could end up with a great housing solution for Frome. It's how we're getting there, which is being very, very difficult. It's not helping us be a team. It's not helping us. I don't understand what's happening here with applications like this. I'm not sure I have a perception. I have a perception, and I don't know if my perception is correct. Was there a delay in when we were minded to has delays crept in as well? I don't want to have a perception of negativity around working with my colleagues. We are all colleagues. We're all on the same side. We're all there to champion the right decisions for our communities. And I don't want to start to have perceptions and doubts and see people shaking their heads when I'm speaking. I don't know what is going to happen next, and I feel very disappointed with the position we're in, and a little bit confused by it, in all honesty. So, have I got a question here? Why are we here as a committee, really, is my question, because this is not the first application where we felt a little bit disconcerted with our role in helping deliver housing and the right planning applications for our communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Would anybody like to attempt to speak to Claire?
The only thing I'd say is just in relation to the question about the PPA, which was, I think, was the point. Sorry, that was a misunderstanding on our part. You mentioned the relationship between an officer and the developer, but if that was in respect of your questions about the PPA agreement, then that was certainly raised at the last meeting. as an issue, and I hope now has been clarified for members. Thank you. I've got nothing else to add.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Thank you, Claire. Susie, you had your hand up again.
Yeah, it's now turned into two things, but so one is just a comment. I feel a bit confused because I feel like if we had approved it at the point that we chose the wording of minded to refuse, we were guided to choose the wording of minded to refuse. If we hadn't done that, if we had approved the planning to go ahead, Secretary of State would have done nothing, I'm guessing. And if we had refused at that point, then it would have been assured that it was put through at appeal. That's kind of like the feeling I'm getting. But anyway, you can respond to that afterwards. The real question I was going to ask, and maybe I've missed it because we have been inundated with so many letters from residents and there's so much to read around this area that, you know, maybe sometimes you read it and it just doesn't all go in. But I don't believe we know what the 5 points are that the legal advisor referred to. And if we haven't already been given that information somewhere, well, if we have, could you tell me where? And if we haven't, would you be able to tell us what they are, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susie. I'm going to pass to Martin, but I will make a comment. I agree with you with the amount of emails that we've received on this one. It's like the size of the Bible. Okay, Martin.
Yes, sure. Yes, Chair. It's in the letter from the Secretary of State, which we received yesterday afternoon. It's paragraph 7, and that is on the portal. It's been circulated, I believe. I can read those out if that would assist councillors, or they can read it at their leisure. Entirely up to you.
No.
It's relatively short, yeah. So on the information so far available to the Secretary of State, the matters which she particularly wishes to be informed about for the purposes of her consideration of the application are: A, the extent to which the proposed development is consistent with the government policies for delivering a sufficient supply of homes in the NPPF. B, the extent to which the proposed development is consistent with government policies for building a strong competitive economy in the NPPF. C, the extent to which the proposed development is consistent with government policies for promoting sustainable transport in the NPPF. D, the extent to which the proposed development is consistent with government policies for conserving and enhancing the natural environment in the NPPF. E, the extent to which the proposed development is consistent with the development plan for the area. And F, any other matters the inspector considers relevant. As I say, the letter is out there, it's on the portal, so you can see that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Martin, for reading that out. I'm sure members took that in. Are there any other members who would like to comment on this one itself? Selwood? I'm looking around. If not, we'll move on.
I just need a proposal to note the change.
Oh yeah,
note the
yeah.
application.
We do need a proposer to do the noting. Adam
I'll second.
and Edric seconding. Okay, so all those in favour?
Yes, that's 10.
Any against? Any abstentions? One abstention. So that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we will move on now to the other members. Oh, Helen, you wish to come back?
Yeah, could I just ask that the concerns of the committee are also minuted with regard to the situation that we're now in? Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure they will be. So that'll be okay. Right, now we're going to move on to number 6. Agenda item 6, which is planning item at Improve, and I think that's Nikki. That is your job, that one.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Bear with me. Hopefully that's going to work now. Here we go. So this is an application, land north of Styles Close in Frome. It's for the construction and operation of an energy storage facility, fencing, landscaping, access, drainage, infrastructure, lighting, CCTV, underground cabling. So it's a application for 40-year timescale. So here's the site at a high level. So the red line is the development boundary for Frome. So you can see it's on the western edge. It's within a little indent on the edge of the town. So the circle shows the rough area of the site. To the north is a stream and the railway line and further residential development. To the south is Styles Close with the access and further residential development. To the east and north is countryside greenfield land. And to the west is an existing substation and Rodden Road. So here's a wider view, so we can see some of the context of the site in aerial format of the context as I've just described. So here we see a closer aerial of the site. So we can see in here that the site is L-shaped. The access is down here from Styles Close. The site slopes downwards to the north. It's next to residential development to the south, as we see there. And we can also see the substation next to it as well. So this one is just showing the settlement limit. Again, the red line just shows the settlement limit. So we've just got the L-shaped site just in here. So it's outside but immediately adjacent. This one is showing the agricultural land classification from the Natural England indicative mapping. So it's very high level. That's as zoomed in as that plan goes. So the site seems to be predominantly urban. Obviously, it's a greenfield site, so it is loss of some agricultural land that can be weighed in the planning balance. So this one is the proposed layout. So I've broken that down into separate slides so you can see it in a bit more detail, but that's just to see it overall. So here's at the bottom section. So we have this landscape strip. So the planting proposed has been enhanced through the life of the application. So the distance there is about 17 metres, and it's proposed to separate and screen the existing substation here and also the proposal up there. So this one's sort of the access and the middle part. So we can see the access through here, a gate, a grasscrete, access track, turning area, small parking area. And then we've got some buildings on the southern side here, and then the sort of the main facility further north, which we can see on this slide. So we've got the rest of the battery in here, the rest of the track. We've got a pond and a dark corridor for bats along the north, retaining that separation with the stream. And then we've got the landscaping on this edge here. So the planting plan, hopefully you can see the labels there that just show a little bit more detail on the planting. So the hedgerows proposed and the planting there on that sort of buffer. And again on the northern side, so we've got the proposed planting around the wetland area, and then we've got boundary planting throughout the development and hedgerow planting. So here's an elevation. This doesn't show any planting, but this is what the proposal would look like. So residents on Styles Close would be sort of up here, this sort of area, and then it's coming down the hill like this, so we can see the fencing and then the tops of the proposed development. And these are the other elevations, so you can see it from the other sides. So the little key on the left shows you, the red arrow shows you where each of these pieces of equipment or buildings are proposed, so you can get your bearings. So this is the proposed substation, so a relatively simple, small single-storey building. The client control room, again on the sort of southern side, again single-storey and relatively simple. This is what the auxiliary transformer would look like, and you can see where that would be located on the site. The battery, so that would sort of go in the middle there. Transformers in there. We've got power conversion system inverters that would go in there. The battery interface cabinet, so we've got 8 of those, 2 CCTV columns, and that's it for the detailed plans. So I shall move on to biodiversity net gain. So this application was submitted before the national requirement for 10% biodiversity net gain came into force, so there is just a requirement to have some gain. But nevertheless, the application includes 13.35% biodiversity net gain overall. So there's a suite of proposals in there that would all lead to this level of biodiversity net gain. That also includes off-site enhancements, which this plan will show you. So we can see the little dot here, that's the application site. So within the same back consultation zone, an area of land has been agreed with the ecologists to represent off-site enhancement for bat habitat, because the site, although there haven't been any bats identified on the site, it's been identified as potentially good habitat for passing bats and foraging activity. So this area is proposed for enhancements through a legal agreement and a landscape management plan, which would be all controlled via consultations with the ecology team. Moving on to lighting. So the lighting zones. So the red area is the bat dark area. The green area shows the development sort of activity, and then we've got the orange area sort of in between the existing dwellings on Styles Close and the development area. A lighting strategy has been submitted, and this includes a lighting model. So the illustration shows the lighting strategy that is sensitive to bats and people and dark skies. So that's all covered in the report. So hopefully that image will help to illustrate the proposals in terms of lighting. Moving on to fire safety. You'll see from the report that it's been covered in some detail in the report, and there's been quite a lot of public objection to lots of points, but in particular on safety and fire safety and emergency protocols. So that's a key issue for consideration today. So just to remind members really that this is covered in the NPPF and we've got national guidance on it. There's also the National Fire Chief guidance, which is referred to in the NPPG as well. That's specifically referred to in there. So that guidance tells us that we should be consulting with the local fire authority, and the applicant should be consulting with them, which has all been undertaken as part of this application, and I will come on to. So there's 3 kind of documents that have been submitted by the applicant. Firstly, there's a high-level fire safety approach, which has been submitted. There's also a fire suppression system design, which includes the approach to fire suppression, and it's got details of different measures and mechanisms proposed to be in place. And then there's also a draft on-site incident report plan, which is what's been recommended in the fire chief guidance. So as per standard practice, a draft has come in with the application that's been subject to consultation with the Devon and Somerset Fire Authority, and that's been looked at and considered acceptable, subject to a condition. So I've just put the condition wording in there on the right, which is standard practice for these types of applications. So when the detailed development of the site, you know, the specific equipment that would be proposed to go in there is determined, then a detailed incident response plan, safety plan would then come forward that would then be discussed with the fire authority via the planning office to ensure that it meets all those requirements. So at my request, the applicant has provided a table. So this is on the update list. And it's gone up online, but just received today. So I've put it up there in full. So it's got on the left, we've got a column of the topic areas that are set out in the fire chief's guidance. And then on the right, it's confirmation of compliance. So we see here a list of measures and mechanisms that are proposed to address all of the issues outlined in the fire chief's guidance. And the fire authority has confirmed that there is no objection and that they consider that a detailed safety plan can be delivered via condition stage when that time comes. So they are obviously the experts in this. It's very detailed technical area. It's covered to some extent by building control, but also by planning through the introduction within the national guidance. So the applicant has detailed their kind of compliance in that respect. So we've also got some photo montages. So this is looking at the site from the access point. So we see here existing dwellings on Styles Close, and we can see the substation on the right. So this is how it looks at the moment. And this is how it would look with the development, with no planting. And this is how it would look after 15 years of the planting being established. Final set of photo montages. So this is looking from the access to within the site. So we can see the substation on the left here. So this is how it is existing. This is how it would be with no planting. And this is how it would be 15 years after the planting has established. So rough distances from existing properties. So we see here is circa 133 to the edge of the battery, or 105 to the boundary. So the fire chief's guidance does talk about a minimum distance of 25 metres, but that's sort of very broad guidance there. So there is been quite a lot of concern via the public consultation comments about the distance from properties. So we are satisfied as officers that that distance is sufficient alongside the safety protocols that have been put in place that are also proposed to be controlled by conditions. Just wrap up with some photographs. I'm sure you'll know the site. This is just looking at it from the access point, looking further down. This is standing at the gate, looking down. So again, we can see just the edge of the substation on our left, and this is looking into the sort of proposed planting strip as it currently is, and this is looking a little bit left, still on that planting strip, but just so we can see where those existing dwellings are, as that's such a key issue for consideration. Updates since the publication of the committee report. There's been some minor wording changes to proposed condition 4, which is removal of the works. As you know, it's a 40-year proposal, so there's conditions in covering dismantling of the equipment and putting the land back to its current position. So it's just clarifying that what that means at the end of those 40 years. We've had 2 new comments received. They're both in support, so there's just a summary of those because they're comments that haven't been summarised already in the report about higher safety standards and controls, noting their support from the Devon and Somerset Fire Rescue Service, and that the proposal complies with the Fire Chief's guidance. And they've also noted the benefits, including energy security and a transition away from fossil fuels. So we also had that summary table, which I've shown in full earlier on. So following those updates, the application remains recommended for approval, subject to advertising as a departure, conditions, informatives, and a legal agreement for the off-site ecological enhancements. I'm happy to take questions in due course. Thank you.
And thank you, Nick. Very good. Right. We now have to move on to the public speakers. And the first one we have is Fresh Robinson from the CPRE, please. And you have 3 minutes, Mr. Robinson. I think you know the drill. You've been here before.
Thank you. This is a completely unacceptable location for large-scale battery storage. National Fire Chief's guidance states that the risks from all types of batteries are similar and that the risks of thermal runaway events include, quote, toxic, flammable and or explosive vapor clouds and projectiles, and may also result in intense flaming combustion. The Fire Chief's guidance also explains that there are multiple possible causes for such incidents, including manufacturing, installation or operational errors, over or undercharging of the units, aging equipment, weather-related damage and vandalism. So is this cramped site just a few yards from properties in Styles Close on one side, a stream on the other side, and an electricity substation a couple of yards away on the third side, really a suitable location? No, it isn't. The applicant has the effrontery to claim that safety concerns are, quote, not a material planning consideration, unquote, but that's nonsense. There was an important change to government planning policy guidance in August 23. Now, both applicants and local authorities must, 1, consult with local fire and rescue services, and 2, take account of the Fire Chief's guidance. The officer's report says Devon and Somerset Fire Services hasn't objected, but they're not statutory consultees. And when you look at their contribution, all they're saying is that they haven't had details yet of the type of batteries or other systems. The officer's report has certainly not taken account of the still current 2022 Fire Chief's guidance. All the following, for example, are contrary to the Fire Chief's guidance. 1, the proposed separation distance between units are much less than 6 metres. 2, there's only one access. 3, there's no perimeter road around all the units. 4, there's no other way than fire water to deal with uncontrolled thermal runaway, but there's no lagoon to contain the thousands, millions of litres of fire water needed to cool the units in that event, nor is there space for one. Surface water collection has been conditioned, but not collection of fire water, which will be polluted water due to the venting toxic gases. There's a clear pollution risk to the water's course. All these breaches of Fire Chief's guidance are exactly the same reasons why the appeal inspector dismissed the appeal for a BESS at Hawkchurch in 2024 last year in East Devon. alternative sites. The applicant has provided a detailed note explaining why no brownfield sites are suitable, but the NPPF allows BESS on greenfield sites well away from housing. None of those alternative sites have been considered. And lastly, neither the officer's report nor the communities officer have considered a critical issue. The proposed acoustic fence is not fit for purpose. The sites on the slope, the top of the fence will barely reach ground levels of the houses. The bedrooms above the site will be listening to 4 noisy transformers and 8 inverter fans all night. This could and should be refused on residential amenity grounds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robinson. Just outside your 3 minutes. Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is online, and it is Anna Sabine, the MP for that particular area. So, Anna, if you'd like to have your 3 minutes, please.
Hi, thank you very much. One of the issues with the planning system is that everyone needs to go down as a supporter or an objector, and I'm actually neither. As an MP, I don't believe it's appropriate for me to speak in favour or against planning applications, but I do feel quite strongly on this that I want to represent the concerns I've had and received from my constituents about this specific site. Having spoken to other MPs and peers in Parliament, I know that this whole battery storage issue is a wide-ranging issue that's causing concerns around the country. I've actually engaged with the Fire Safety All-Party Parliamentary Group, which has concerns over large-scale lithium-ion sites, and I still find it incredulous that fire and rescue and safety authorities aren't statutory consultees. And so I've actually tabled a presentation bill to try to make this so. This is a big, wider issue than just Frome. I do believe we need to transition away from our reliance on fossil fuels, and that BESS can provide a partial solution to this. But clearly there are fire risks associated with any battery item, from household batteries setting fire to landfill sites, to e-bikes and vapes and large-scale battery facilities. Any community would be right to be concerned about the prospect of this in their vicinity unless proper due diligence, risk assessment and mitigation plans have been put in place, which I don't think there's enough evidence to believe there has been in this case. I'm not comfortable with the kind of level of mitigation that's being delegated as part of this. As the representative from CPRE more eloquently said than I suspect I will, fire and rescue authorities aren't statutory consultees for BESS planning applications. And while I do understand that Devon and Somerset have engaged on this application, Devon and Somerset Fire Rescue, their initial response was sparse. And when they were pushed to engage again, the second response was more detailed, but couldn't comment on a lot of issues due to lack of sufficient information. I would be really cautious about reading and lack of objection as being the same thing as the rescue service being entirely content with the application. From what I've heard from residents, it doesn't seem as if the risk has been properly factored into plans, and that's just not right in this particular area. I would urge the committee at the very least to defer the application in order to carry out a site visit. I was very, very surprised when I saw this site in real life, to see the site and consider whether they'd be comfortable with this application if they lived locally, not just in terms of residential amenity, but in terms of safety, in terms of access and all kinds of other considerations. I do really have concerns about this, and I would urge the members to just try and go and have a look if they can. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Anna. Yes. And you were inside your 3 minutes, I believe. Okay, our next speaker is Douglas Eason, who is local residents opposing the application. I think you have a map and photo. Okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes.
If I could just correct you, my name's Douglas Bryce. I changed my name, but I don't think
you've changed your name. You've changed your name. Okay.
My neighbours know that. I'm Douglas Bryce, BRYCE. Thank you all for your time.
Okay, thank you. So you have your 3 minutes. Can start now.
Yes, please, if you could. Okay. Yeah.
Or we'll wait until your pictures are up. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that looks good. Thank you. Okay, continue, start, yeah.
Professional planning advisor for Stop Frome BESS, Elliot Jones of Planning Potential, raises significant concerns again about the proposal as they have been ignored. Close proximity of the site to housing and the effect on residents' amenity, adverse impact on landscape and ecology on site, safety of the proposed development due to lack of adherence to the National Fire Chief Council's recommendations 2023 referenced in planning policy guidance, does not meet local energy need, but serves the wider national grid where more appropriate sites could serve this requirement. Thus, the proposal, contrary to the officer's recommendation, does not comply with the development plan. The site is located outside the settlement boundary where there is a presumption against development, and there are no material considerations that suggest that this presumption should be changed. Whilst fire mitigation and suppression measures are put forward by the applicant, it is noted that further information and evidence is to be provided that will be addressed by a condition attached to the planning permission. This information should be before the committee now, because if this information requires subsequent changes to the design of the scheme, it is not lawful to redesign a scheme by condition. Before planning permission is granted, you must be satisfied that the development will be safe. That is a decision that cannot be left to another day. The information to enable that decision to be made is missing. The proposal does not eliminate the risk of a thermal event happening. At a recent BES proposal appeal in East Devon, the inspector refused consent on the grounds that the potential of a fire and its environmental impact outweighed the perceived benefits of the scheme. Should thermal runaway occur, there is a high risk of a toxic plume and air pollution. Given the high volume of water needed to cool BES units being left to burn out, there is a high risk of water pollution with adverse consequences to Rodden Lake Stream, since there is no contaminated water containment provision. The proposal should align with the NFC guidance, but there is a disconnect between the proposal and guidance regarding the number of access points, water attenuation tank provision, and unit spacings. Trina states they adhere to the NFPA 855, but this standard was used to inform the NFCC guidance, not to replace it. Nowhere does NFCC state that their principles can be replaced by those outlined by NFPA. The NFCC considers that the NFPA spacing guidelines are insufficient and have set their own standards. Any difference from the NFCC guidance is clearly in contravention. Trina hasn't proven that this is the most sustainable location for the proposal, as there has been no alternative site assessment, despite nearby sites without the same level of constraints. The proposal constitutes inappropriate development in the countryside and is therefore contrary to the development plan. A review of material considerations indicates no reason to justify a departure from the local plan. Thus, considering the overall planning balance, the only conclusion that can be reached is that the application should be refused. Thank you very much for your time.
And thank you very much. Yes. Okay, our next speaker is Rebecca Bryant Jeffries, please. And Rebecca, you have 3 minutes. Okay.
Do I have to press something?
Right. Thank you.
I'm just putting them up.
This statement is from the Friends of the River Frome. The Friends of the River Frome support the creation of battery energy storage sites in principle as part of the transition to a low carbon economy, but must raise an objection to this particular proposal due to the close proximity of the application site to Rodden Lake Stream, which is a priority habitat. Specifically, Friends of River Frome have serious concerns that in the event of a fire at the battery storage facility, the proposed 10-metre buffer along the riparian corridor will be overwhelmed by large amounts of water and chemicals used to suppress the fire, resulting in potentially large amounts of pollution ending up in Rodden Lake Stream and then into the River Frome and surrounding water tables. This would have a catastrophic impact on the river ecology downstream. River invertebrates and fish, as well as iconic river species such as otters, beavers and kingfishers would be adversely impacted. The river ecology is already under considerable strain due to the pollution from various sources and could not survive any additional pollution incident from the proposed battery storage facility. Although the recommended condition 6 requires an emergency pollution control statement to be agreed prior to the start of the development, it is unclear how this will be monitored and which regulatory authority will be responsible for enforcement. Continuing. The Environment Agency also requests assurances that the nearby stream will not be adversely affected during construction and future operation. Locally, BESS are seen as ideal for energy storage and net zero, but globally they're not, creating a massive carbon footprint in manufacture, transport, decommissioning, recycling and recommissioning their replacement every 9 years or so. The batteries of this BESS will need to be replaced 4 or 5 times during the 40-year plan, which will be another burden for the residents. How are BESS deemed non-hazardous when they are transported as extremely hazardous and with many BESS undergoing thermal runaway? Somerset Council must not set a monumental precedent in allowing fire safety regulations to be waived for the construction of a BESS in a tiny cul-de-sac, only 32 metres, not 133 as Trina claims, from homes on a cramped site with a limited ability to fight fire. Where is Somerset Council's duty of care to residents? We support renewals, but this is not the right place for a scheme like this. It must be rejected.
And thank you very much, Rebecca. Okay, next we go to David Riley, please. And David, you have 3 minutes also.
Good afternoon. For your information, I point out that the bat habitat sheds belong to the tenant, not the landlord. I think that's been misrepresented. Public concerns and those of Frome Town Council have been largely ignored. In consequence, there has been no attempt to find a more suitable site, say adjacent to a solar installation, well away from residential areas. Placing their trust in Trina's background sound prediction of up to 40 decibels, Environment and Community Protection felt that a possible 5 decibel increase was acceptable. But we know that the figures are contradicted by Trina's chiller unit, which will emit 70 decibels, a sound equivalent to that of a passing car. Trina has modelled acoustic fences to meet the ECP levels. However, due to the field's steep gradient, even at 5 metres tall, the top of the acoustic fence would only reach to the ground level of the nearest houses 32 metres away. The fence would probably be ineffective. Recent sound readings taken at the Taunton BESS site reached 62 decibels at a distance of 75 metres from the site, more than 20 decibels above the predicted Frome background level. This would be unacceptable, and it throws doubt on the 5 decibel variation indicated by Trina. The 75-metre perimeter fence at Taunton BESS provokes further alarm at the absence of a safe perimeter distance at Frome BESS. The visual effect of the proposed 1.8-metre fence on the garden boundaries has been described as slight and negligible, despite blocking views of a meadow with trees, hedgerows, birds and animals. This is both an insult and a draconian deprivation of amenity. Many BESS thermal runaways have occurred globally. As a result, BESS fire management recommendations are well established, yet they are ignored here. Toxic BESS fires can't be extinguished. They are left to burn out, often for several days. Fire spread is fought by cooling with millions of litres of water. This would contaminate the adjacent stream and the River Frome, as water containment is absent. BESS thermal runaways are not a thing of the past, yet Trina Solar deems the fire risk minor. The inadequacy of this proposal is clear in the inadequate plan. No industrial rated fire hydrants, no 10-metre vegetation buffer zones, no safely distanced perimeter fence, no access or space for deployment of fire appliances, no toxic water containment, failure to respect 6 metres between battery containers and 2.5 metres between units. Could Trina shut the BESS down if the remote access were to be hacked? What guarantees exist that the site will be carefully managed for 40 years? The council must refuse this unsafe
Okay, thank you. And just over the 3 minutes. Thank you. Our next person is Mr. Daniel Williams. He's on Teams, I believe. Are you there, Mr. Williams?
Yes, many thanks.
Okay, you have 3 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, appreciate that. I offer my support on projects like these. The projects like these are critical in the managing energy transition, ensuring a sustainable, low carbon future, providing essential energy storage capabilities. This project will support renewable energy integration, improve grid stability, and reduce reliance on fossil fuels. Also note this connection to the HV networks receives 60% supply from solar and BESS generations. This site could have enough power to 110,000 homes for 1 hour. Battery storage facilities are designed and developed with safety as a top priority. Modern systems are equipped with advanced fire detection, suppression technologies, thermal management solutions, and comprehensive monitoring to ensure a safe, reliable operation. Additionally, projects like this comply with the relevant health and safety and fire safety regulations, demonstrating a commitment to protecting both the community and the environment. Once operational, this project will be maintained by a dedicated team of trained professionals who will implement strict health and safety protocols, do regular inspection, preventive maintenance, and cutting-edge monitoring. The facility's safety, efficiency, and reliability will be upheld throughout the lifestyle of the project.
Yeah, but it's been
A proven application represents a significant step forward in supporting the region's energy transition while delivering long-term benefits to the community and environment. I strongly encourage the committee to support this vital project to help drive progress towards a sustainable energy future and remove the reliance on fossil fuels. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Williams. Cheers. We have Mr. Philip Martin, and he also is on Teams, please. And Philip, you will have 3 minutes as well.
Okay, can I just confirm that you can hear me okay? Hello?
Yeah.
Just to do speak a little louder, Mr. Martin.
Yeah, is that any better?
Just speak up a bit louder, I think.
Oh, okay, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to speak to the committee. I'm speaking to express my support for the Frome battery storage project and to emphasise the safety features that support its critical role in facilitating the energy transition towards a carbon neutral and eventually positive electricity grid across the county and the region. Whilst renewable energy generation is seen and understood by many, there is perhaps less understanding of the role that battery storage systems play as an essential feature required to manage renewable energy fluctuations and reducing reliance on fossil fuels. It is unfortunate that battery systems used in mass-produced products, from electric bikes to cars, are widely reported as an increase in cause of fires across the world. Whilst this is an issue that requires addressing by their industries, it must be acknowledged that this project will use very different and far more advanced battery technology in systems that are highly regulated and subject to constant monitoring. This is not the case in the aforementioned examples. The proposed battery storage system would be engineered to the highest standards, with features to ensure that it is safe both in construction and in use. During the early planning stages, representatives of the project have engaged with Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service, who have acknowledged that Trina Solar are, and I quote, aware of and serious about meeting their safety obligations. The Fire and Rescue Service will have based their consideration and response on the guidance published by the National Fire Chiefs Council. This guidance is being developed through research completed in Australia and the United States of America, where battery storage systems are well established as an essential element of stable electricity supply infrastructure. If this project is supported, the Fire and Rescue Service will gather information based on the National Fire Chiefs Council guidance to ensure that they understand the operation and safety systems and to ensure their preparedness for the risks in their area. They would be expected to further engage with Trina Solar to complete a site-specific risk information document with the company's full support, as is required by the Fire and Rescue Services Act of 2004. Once in operation, the battery and electrical storage equipment is carefully monitored on a 24/7 basis by an intelligent system that constantly measures a range of data from individual batteries and the other components in the plant. In the event of a fault occurring, this would be identified in its earliest stage, and the plant will have a series of inbuilt measures to shut down and isolate any element which has given a cause for concern. An inspection of an affected element and any necessary or remedial work would be completed prior to the system coming back into operation. Safety is paramount in the design and operation of this system. Beyond the clear desire and duty to maintain public safety, firefighter safety, and the environment and energy supply, this project represents a considerable financial investment, which also requires protection. The Frome Battery Storage Project represents a forward-thinking solution to meet energy demands while supporting sustainability goals. I urge you to consider the substantial benefits of this project that it will bring to the community and the broader transition to renewable energy. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Philip. Cheers. Next, we have either Steve Tanner or Jane Llewellyn from Frome Town Council, please. Are you online or are you in the... No, you're here. Okay, you have 3 minutes then, Jane, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, we'd like to commend... Clicked out. Thank you. I'll start again. Thank you. So firstly, we'd like to commend the case officer in putting together such a comprehensive report. This is a very difficult application for us to comment on. As you know, Frome Town Council has declared a climate and ecological emergency. We believe that urgent action is required if we are to reduce the massive risks associated with climate change for nature, people and the planet. We acknowledge that battery storage improves the use of renewable energy, and renewable energy is what we need for Frome. However, we do still have serious concerns about the safety of this installation, the proximity to residents and the noise impacts. You've heard clearly from all of the previous speakers about all the concerns that have been raised, so I won't go over them again. And we appreciate that the officer has responded to these points in their report. And whilst we don't have any expertise or contrary evidence to offer, we ask that the committee consider all those issues in detail. And we would want to see the adherence to the National Fire Chiefs guidelines. We're also concerned that the off-site BNG is not in Frome, as there are sites in Frome that could benefit from an upgrade. We also know that the applicant has offered to contribute £10,000 per annum into a community benefit fund. Whilst this is not required to make the development acceptable in planning terms, if the application is approved, we would want to ensure that this fund is provided for the benefit of the community. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Very succinct. Yep, very good. Thank you. Okay, we have one more speaker left. We have Mr. Roger Laird, please. Robert, sorry. Yeah. And you're the agent, I believe. Thank you. So you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. As the case officer has said, the application before the committee today is recommended for approval, and I would like to take the time to go over the importance of this type of development and how the application has received no objection from the relevant fire and rescue service. So, as we've heard, BESS, such as the one proposed, are vital to achieving our legally binding commitment to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. The site is ideally located for this important facility as it is adjacent to the existing Frome bulk supply point substation. And crucially, this substation has capacity available to connect into something which is increasingly scarce locally and nationally. Approximately 60% of registered power generation connected into the Frome substation is from solar generation. A challenge with solar and other renewable generation is ensuring that electricity generated during peak times is not wasted. This is where BESS comes in, storing this excess electricity generated during peak hours and later releasing it back into the grid when renewable generation is low or when local demand requires backup. Therefore, this battery will also perform an important local function, including by helping the grid operator to balance electricity supply. This will help avoid outages and the overloading of the Frome substation. While BESS plays a vital role in our net zero obligations, the applicant recognises that there are concerns around the safety of these facilities, and I would like to now address these briefly to provide clarity and assurance to residents and members. Lithium ferrophosphate batteries, which are the type of battery proposed, are considered safer than the batteries which use different chemical compositions. For example, there have been no fires ever reported at operational LFP BESS facilities in the UK. The technology is also fully compliant with internationally recognised and used safety standards and testing. As we've heard, the Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service has been consulted and have raised no objection to the proposal. The applicant has submitted an outline on-site incident response plan in line with the advice that was received by the Fire and Rescue Service, which in their own words demonstrates, quote, that the applicant is aware of and serious about meeting their safety obligations. The applicant will continue to work with the local fire service, as we've heard, including liaising on the development of a thorough battery safety management plan, which the applicant is happy to have as a condition on any planning permission granted today. To summarise the application before the committee today, will make a valuable local and national contribution to achieving net zero, balancing the grid and reducing the risk of overload and outages at the Frome substation. Indeed, this contribution to managing electricity supply will help to reduce the risk of fires caused by overloading. It also benefits from an available grid connection adjacent to the site at an existing substation and received no objection from the local fire and rescue service, who are satisfied the applicant is meeting its safety obligations and taking the required measures to achieve this. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Laird. Okay, committee, we've been through all the public speakers now, so we were coming to you. So, who wants to be the first person to enter the debate? Martin D.
May as well. Can I have some answers on the traffic movement in this, in connection with this application? Commercial traffic moving backwards and forwards, what's going to be the impact on Styles Close, as that's the only entrance and exit, please?
Nick.
We do have a couple of highways officers here, actually. It's very low through the operational stage, but obviously there is increased traffic through construction. Are you happy to take that, Emma? Thank you.
Okay, Emma, are you going to give the highways opinion? Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, as Nikki quite rightly says, the construction phase, much like a solar farm, is obviously much more vehicle movement intensive. Once constructed, the level of movements to this site will be very minimal. Having considered the construction phase as the worst case scenario, the Highway Authority are content that there is not a significant or severe harm to the area during that phase.
Mr. Chair, may I come back? May I come back on that?
Yeah, certainly can, Martin.
Actually, because I'm going to clarify something. I'm talking about, one accepts that during the construction process is going to be traffic coming backwards and forwards. What is likely to be the daytime activity once the storage plant is set up and running? Will we be expecting quite a high level of movement through that the housing area there?
Yes, please, Emma.
If you can give me a moment or three, I might be able to find the exact numbers that may be sat in the transport statement. So if you give me a moment or three, that'd be great.
Would you like me to step in, Emma?
That'd be fabulous. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah. So once it's fully up and running, you're expecting maintenance possibly once every couple of weeks, but there won't be any severe traffic impacts once the actual the development is complete.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. So that answers your question, I think, Martin. Yeah. Helen.
No, sorry, excuse me. Sorry.
Okay.
Rob's been waiting.
Oh, Rob's first.
Sorry, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we've heard a lot about possible safety concerns, but the thing that struck me first of all was access to and from the site. I wonder, we did have a slide, first of all, showing the access to the site. Can we see that again, please? But it appears to me there is only one way in and one way out, which is concerning. Is there no other access that we can approach through the sub-centre, or can we see the the site picture again, please?
Bear with, please. My computer's now crashed. I'll redo it. That is something that was raised by local members earlier on in the application, and it was looked into by the applicant whether there were any other options. It wasn't possible to get access through the substation due to safety issues, and the option of looking at the landscape strip for an access road was considered. It was considered more preferable to have landscaping as a sort of screening buffer, and as that wasn't put forward as an objection by the Fire Authority or the Highways Authority, that wasn't on balance, that was considered the better approach. But bear with me and I'll put the plan on.
For those online, it appears we have a little bit of a tech problem. Which one did you want, Rob?
Shows the access.
Yeah.
The electrical substation, where the access to that is.
Their access is off Rodden Road. So I can show you on probably the aerials would be better, wouldn't they?
Yeah, oh, okay.
Can't quite see on that one. Could you see on that one? Oh yeah, you can. I beg your pardon. Yeah, their access is in there. Look. But they can't go through that site. So yeah, we did discuss about, you know, potentially coming down that strip, as I said, but that was discarded in favour of landscaping.
Do we know how wide Styles Close is? I mean, the question is it suitable for emergency vehicles?
Well, as I say, we haven't had an objection from the Fire Authority or the Highway Authority on that. So it's considered acceptable.
Rob, can you use your mic when you speak, please, for the benefit of everybody?
Vice Chair. I'm very polite. Okay, you finished now then, Rob, have you? Okay, so next we go to Helen.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm a bit confused by all the technical data here. The agent has said that this is a new kind of battery and there have been no fires with these kind of batteries in the UK. And because it's a new kind of battery. Yeah, okay, hang on. Hang on. So I am I'm you know, predisposed to be in favour of these batteries because of their contribution to energy storage. However, I have been sent a couple of things by people, and one of them says that that there's a similar battery where there has been a fire, and it was in can I just speak? East Hampton, and I believe that there was a fire, and they tried to put it out, and the water went into the local river, and the toxins went into the local river. So, and that's the East Hampton Energy Storage Centre, which was also monitored remotely with internal, external video and all the rest of it. And that was just recently, I think it was 2017, 2018. So I'm a bit concerned about this, and I am concerned that we're putting the cart before the horse if we have a situation where, I mean, I'm looking at the consultation, what the fire authority said, and it kept saying things like, well, we haven't got all the technical details, so we can't quite say yet whether we'd agree with this or not on all the different aspects of the plan. And so I am just very concerned about the technical side of it, and if you could explain to me if this is a very new battery and it hasn't, and in which case there's also a risk with that because it hasn't been sort of trialed, so there are other risks that they're sort of known unknowns, if you like, that we don't yet know about. And it's when you do a risk analysis, often it's like you look at the likelihood of the risk and then the intensity and the consequences of the risk. Do you know what that risk analysis is? It's like, what is it? Is there like a 1 in, I don't know, 100-year event like you do with flooding? You might say there's a 100-year event that this flood might happen, or that sort of thing, because the consequences of this going wrong are very, very high. So that is what concerns me. Yeah, thank you. I've got a few other points as well, but
okay, Nick, first. Would you like to reply to Helen?
I should do my best to answer that one. Obviously, I'm not a technical specialist in this, so I'm reliant on the fire authority to have a look at it. So it's something that we've had 2 rounds of consultation and discussions on the telephone, just to bottom that out. So my understanding is that it's standard practice that a draft safety protocol would come in, and then that would be subject to very detailed design. And the fire authority have sort of said that they're satisfied that a safe protocol could come forward based on what they've seen. So I've taken that in good faith in my recommendation. I'm not familiar with the East Hampton. There was a reported fire in Liverpool, which I have discussed it in the report. It's talked about in appeal decisions, which are also quoted in the report, and there's also the appeal decision in Devon, which I think one of the speakers referred to, which was dismissed on fire safety issues. Obviously, each case is assessed on its own merits. I couldn't put a level of risk. I appreciate that it's a concern, it's a legitimate planning concern. As far as I can tell, that the fire authority has come forward with no objection. There's no other mechanism that I'm aware of in planning that we could have more assurance that it's acceptable, it's met the requirement. Although the fire authority is not a statutory consultee, they've sort of been treated like one anyway, and that's come forward. So to the best of our knowledge, it's met with those policy requirements.
Okay, can I follow up on that, please?
Yeah, you can come back.
Which is just that somebody mentioned it just now, that if they did come forward, like the fire authority do come forward, if this gets approved today and the fire authority do come forward saying like, well, okay, so we've got to see this in place and this and this and this, it may then lead to a change in the layout. Will it then go back to consultation again? Because it has to be so the public can actually comment on it. And I have got a second question, which is there a reason? The agent said that this substation is unusual, that it has capacity to plug into, and that's a good thing, and that's one of the reasons why they want to be right next to the substation. Is it? But whereas I've heard from some of the comments that have come into my email that it is possible to have these things like in a greenfield site, so they would be far away from local residents. Do you know about the advantage and disadvantage of having to have it next to this substation, or whether it could in fact be further away? Is there a loss of energy in the transfer between the two? That's my next question. And I'm sorry, they're a bit technical. Yeah. First of all, the consultation, if it has to go out for consultation again, yeah.
Okay, Nick, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So the conditions are specific, so that the applicant, in the event that the application is approved, the applicant would need to apply to discharge that. So if that resulted in a change to the layout, then that would trigger. If that's outside the scope of the condition, which it would be, then it would trigger its own process in its own right. So that would, potentially be a new application or a variation of condition. So that would then trigger consultation as to what would be necessary there. So it's quite discreet on that particular condition, and that condition doesn't include layout changes. The other question,
looking at other sites, apparently somebody said that they hadn't looked at other potential greenfield sites or something. Yeah.
So they come forward as greenfield sites. I don't remember the last solar farm that the planning committee considered that had a battery storage facility adjacent to the solar farm. So I think in those cases that would include underground connections. So it is possible the applicants looked at brownfield alternative sites and discounted those for the reasons set out in their statement and the report. I guess I would sort of say that the application is on this site, so I would ask the committee to make the decision on this site on the planning merits.
We have to look at what's in front of us. Yeah. Okay, I'd like to come back later with another question if other people want to speak.
Yeah, if you can join the back of the queue. Okay, cheers. So we're going to Adam next. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I live not far away. I do know the area, and we could all benefit from a site visit. I think to see that it's a nice meadow. It's got these big fences around, like seen on TV, but it is a nice meadow. This would blot out the view for residences of that close, and change it quite permanently. I think we've got a problem here in that there's a lot of. Is that better? I think there's a sort of problem here in that there's the community are terrified about the safety risks of a fire and the environmental consequences of putting that fire out and how long that would go. And there's some different technical information available about the. Is that better?
Can we try a different speaker for Adam, please? See if it'll work.
Is Martin the problem? Is that it?
Probably.
Sorry. I think that's better, isn't it? I think I was saying that there's a problem in that there's a level of information, technical information, which obviously the committee we're not technically qualified to understand really, but we have to interpret it as does the case officer, and it goes so far in that the fire and rescue service are not objecting to the proposals based on what they've seen. They said it could comply with our standards and national standards and guidance. It could do it. They believe it. They give it the benefit of the doubt. But we don't have the technical reports. We don't have the information that would be required under 3 conditions, 5, 6, and 7, in front of us. So, is there any reason why we couldn't request that the level of detail in conditions? Proposed conditions 5, 6, and 7 to do with the battery safety management plan pre-occupation, an emergency pollution control method statement pre-commencement, and the battery storage surface water drainage pre-commencement. At least a lot of the information requested in those before determining the application to help at least see whether what the assertions are in the application, whether they're correct, as in they can contain the fire water, safety is a low level risk for this particular technology, and so on, and whether the community's concerns can be allayed at least to some extent by having that information up front. Is there any reason why we can't see that now, apart from that the applicant hasn't prepared it?
Okay, Nick, would that be you? Oh, Tom, are you looking like you
Sorry.
might want this?
Yeah, I mean, the condition is, as I say, it's standard practice for the conditions to be put on the last battery storage that the committee considered. We had those conditions, so it's usual to include those. So if they if insufficient information was submitted to demonstrate that those safety aspects couldn't be achieved, including with consultation with the fire authority and ecology, then those conditions would be refused, and they're pre-commencement conditions, so they couldn't construct. That would be my response on that. I'm going to pass over to Tom just to discuss about the site visit.
Thank you. And for the benefit of those who don't know, I'm the area manager for development management. Yeah, so Nicky's responded in terms of the safety and can understand people raising that issue. People have spoke at length at that. It's been very useful. As Nicky said, that an exchange of information can be achieved. So in terms of needing a site visit, I couldn't see any necessity for a site visit to understand that better. I can respond on any other points. What I was saying was that in terms of the safety issues, it's good that's been raised and it needs to be looked at carefully. And Nicky's explained the considerations of that. I do note actually a further point that the East Devon Hawkchurch appeal was dismissed. I read there that the Devon Somerset Fire and Rescue had actually raised concerns. I don't think, as isn't the case in this, they had raised concerns, whereas in this instance they are satisfied. And what I just said was that in terms of it, if we did feel the need to have more information on that, more certainty, I was just saying that wouldn't necessitate a site visit to understand that better. It wouldn't, because that could be factual information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Nicky. Adam, are you?
Can I reserve the right to come back and make a proposal?
You can come back a bit later, no problem.
Thanks.
Edric, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. So I was going to suggest we defer, but it sounds like we need to get the information in anyway as a pre-commencement thing. So I'm not so sure asking for deferral is the right thing to do. So I'll see what maybe Adam's thinking on there. I think maybe as a committee we need to ask ourselves, if you lived at the back road of Styles Close, would you be happy to live there? Amongst the 13 of us sat here, I think it would come down to, would you be happy to buy a house? So this is going to be built. And in my case, it's no.
Right, thank you, Edric. Dawn is next, yeah.
Hi, thank you. So there's been a few words and phrases that have really concerned me in not only the report, but also in the conversation. Cul-de-sac, greenfield, toxic fumes, noise, electricity, safer, not safe, serious about meeting safety obligations and not meeting safety obligations, but also obligations is not enough. Mr. Robinson made reference to the fire service not being a statutory consultee, and I believe their report would be different if they were a statutory consultee. There is a second reading in April for the bill that would make them the second, a statutory consultee, and I wonder why this would not be relevant after that. There are just too many points, really, as Helen made reference to, for the fire service to implement after they've got the approval. It feels rather like, well, if we get the approval, then we'll put this in place, and we'll think about that. It seems too many unknowns for complete assurance that it is safe. I also think that when we've made reference to international standards, my view often with tech is that tech moves a lot quicker than we can keep up with. We can't necessarily keep up with concerns and health and safety and also infrastructure with tech. So for me, I think a deferral is not an option. I think it's coming from me, having listened to all the speakers, I also feel that this has to be going against officer recommendation, because I would not want to be living there if I know that this is coming up soon.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. No, I've got others yet. So Barry, you're first.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a great shame that successive governments' energy policy has left us at a point where we have zero spare capacity and we have to put a tick in the box for this scheme. Now, in principle, I think this scheme is excellent. It's saving wasted energy that has been generated at night time. Nobody uses it, and the people in these 110,000 houses can have electricity for an hour. It's a brilliant scheme, but the people who say we're aware and take our responsibility seriously, we all do in all walks of life. And then one day something goes wrong. And this man flying the helicopter into the airliner in the Tomac River last week, he was very aware, very responsible, probably couldn't have been better trained, but then it comes and hits you and you're not ready for it. And the only reason I say I don't think we're ready for this is because we have mentioned the Devon, or people have mentioned the Devon and Somerset Fire Brigade, who seem to, well, yeah, I think it's okay, but we're not statutory consultee anyway. But if you look at the Herefordshire and Worcestershire Fire Brigade's comments, they are completely different. They are more detailed and they've got more serious implications for things that go wrong and what to do about them. So it should have a tick in a box, but I don't think it'll get my tick. Thank you, Chairman.
And thank you, Barry. Okay. It is Helen, you're next.
I think yes, I know, but I think next time I'm going to say everything's up front and not wait a second time. Okay. There was another question. Something came in to my inbox saying that excuse me, sorry, I've got to get it up. That there's something called NFCC guidance. I don't know what that stands for. I don't know if you know what that stands for, Nikki. It says quite clearly that 2 accesses are required because wind directions can change and the first responders risk driving through explosive vapour clouds if there's a thermal runaway event. And this guidance is due to be released later this year, and but there's no reason to think they're going to lower the safety standards. And I'm also thinking about what Adam, and it says in the paper here, what Anna Sabine said, which is that there needs to be, that I think it's scheduled for April 25 this year, that there's going to be another reading of that bill, which will also change the safety standards. So my feeling overall is that I'm just wondering if I might support Adam if he's going to put a motion forward to defer it. I'm not absolutely sure yet, but that's the way I'm starting to feel. And the other thing is about this acoustic fence. We saw some diagrams on the when Nikki showed the diagrams that showed the slope and the land at the back of the gardens at the back of the cul-de-sac. This is why site visit is important, actually, because then you can see that the back of the gardens at the back of the cul-de-sac slope down towards the river, and they slope down towards the existing transfer station. And so I think that even if you put 4 metre or 5 metre high fences there, they're not actually going to be even as high as the ground floors of these houses. So if in the summer, particularly when people might have their windows open, they're going to be quite noisy. And I can see that because it's in my division. I haven't been involved in this at all, by the way, because I look after a different part of the division. So I've come into this with a sort of open mind. But I have been to visit the site, and it is quite obvious that it's not pretty. I mean, it's not as if they get a nice view anyway. And in some respects, the landscaping might make it nicer for you. But it's going to take 15 years for those trees to grow. And the trees will act as a buffer. But in terms of the sound, it's not going to be, those fences are not going to work. So I am a bit concerned about that as well. Okay, I don't know if you want to come back on any of that, Nikki, particularly about the second access road, actually. I think that's probably most important. And the noise, actually.
Okay, Nikia, come back.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so
what is NFCC? Who are they?
They are the National Fire Chiefs Council.
Oh,
so that's the guidance. Okay. So that's the guidance that we've referred to. So it's in the report, and I put the front cover page. There's also a proposed update to that, which I've also referred to in the report. Like you say, you've been for a site visit already. I would usually expect the councillors to have gone, but obviously if members are minded to defer for a site visit, then they are to do that, that's fine. So yeah, as you know, there's no right to a private view. So although some of those houses on the end in particular, their views would be affected, unfortunately, we can't take that into account in planning terms. In terms of noise and the acoustic fence, that has been discussed in detail with the environmental protection team. So the updated comments have come in following issues raised by neighbours and local people. That was specifically checked, you know, are you sure? And so they've come back, yes, they're satisfied. So as planning officers, we can't really suggest anything other than to, you know, endorse what they've said as the technical noise expert.
There is just a common sense thing, though. If you go and look at the site, you see that the land is sloping down and the fences won't be high enough. So it's just common sense. Can you take me back to the two access roads, please?
Sorry, could you remind me of the question of that?
Yeah, basically it says, I've been told that the NFCC guidance says that 2 accesses are required because wind directions can change and first responders risk driving through explosive vapour clouds if there is a thermal runaway event.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, the guidance does recommend 2 access points. 1 access point is proposed. That's been considered by the Devon and Somerset Fire Authority, who've said that in this case they're happy. So yeah, that's why that conclusion's being put forward.
Okay, thank you, Helen. We've got 3 speakers left, and that's it. Then we're going to a vote. Martin Lovell, please. Martin L.
Can I come back about noise? I mean, to my way of thinking, that any noise pollution would be unacceptable. And I'm not quite clear in the report what the response to that is. Good. So that's my first question. Second question, the public speakers talked about toxicity, the water used in dealing with a fire, poisoning the river stream down at the bottom. Again, I found the report a bit weak on addressing that particular issue. So just wondering if both of those you could come back on both of those. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for those questions. Yeah, so noise, there's been a noise report submitted with the application. That was submitted on the basis of a 5-metre acoustic fence. So there was concerns raised on the impact, the design impact on that. So it was reduced down to 4, and then an updated noise survey report, submitted. So that's all been subject to consultation with the environmental protection team. So they have a noise specialist in there that looks at that and informs and has commented on the application. So their comments are summarised in the report and then the overall conclusions. So, as I say, they are the noise specialists within the council that make recommendations. So we are satisfied as officers that that is acceptable, and our refusal wouldn't be justified on that basis. In terms of toxic water, yeah, the application has been subject to consultation with various ecology, the Environment Agency. So the standard conditions that you put on, as we saw for the last solar farm that the committee considered, that there's water emergency protocol conditions that's also been discussed and agreed with the local lead flood authority to ensure that that meets best practice in the event of an emergency. So I hope that's clear enough. Tom, did you?
Okay, thank you, Nick. That's very good of you. Susie?
Thank you. I would like to say that having read the papers, read the emails sent in appertaining to this, and listened to the arguments around the table, I feel I would like to propose that we reject this planning application on the grounds of residential amenity with specific reference to safety and access. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Edric?
Councillor Hart's beat me to it, so I would like to second her proposal. And I've been thrashing out the details of this, so we've got a good case. Shall I go and share this to Councillor Hart as she's made the proposal, the details? Or,
Yeah.
am I allowed to go over there and share these details? Or
I think
You can just read it out.
read them out if you like, Vice Chair.
given the close proximity of the proposal to neighbouring residential property in Stars Close, significant detriment to their residential amenity, contrary to DP1 and DP7, and disagrees with the conclusion by the officer of 20.1 and 20.2. It's what I've thrashed out with the officer.
Chair.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just give members a bit more advice. Obviously, you've seen the officer recommendation, members, and as you know, you're able to on reading of the officer assessment either agree or disagree. I think the vice chair, and obviously Councillor Sully have listened. Councillor Hart, sorry, have listened and reflected to what's been said. I mean, ultimately, you're disagreeing with the officer recommendation, and it's important that you recognise when you're making that decision that you have also considered the benefits of the proposal, because there is a balance for you to take. So you have to recognise the benefits that the application would provide, but notwithstanding those, proceed to conclude, as the Vice Chair's just said, that due to the close proximity of the proposal to the neighbouring residential properties on Stars Close, the proposal would result in significant detriment to their residential amenity, and for that reason you disagree with the officer and you think that the application is contrary to policy DP1 and DP7, and that the harm arising for their residential amenities actually outweighs the benefits that the scheme will deliver. So I think if you can reflect that in your resolution, Vice Chair and Councillor Hart, that would be a safe decision to take.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Thank you to Martin. I'm going to let you speak. Just quickly.
In addition to that, I think the access is a crucial point in planning law, because it's suggested that there should be two access points and there's only one. It's quite clear that access point has been parked on. We have mentioned the fact that we might need yellow. Well, I think, I beg your pardon, Councillor Sully did. You made me do it now. Councillor Hart did suggest that, and that should be included in it. We saw parked cars in that turn in there. It's not fit for an emergency vehicle.
Okay, the proposer.
So my proposal was, I'm obviously happy to take advice on whether this is the best wording, but my proposal was on the grounds of residential amenity with specific reference to safety and access.
Councillor, okay, can somebody reply, Simon?
Councillor Hart, I think I would encourage you to do residential amenity and the access arrangements, and avoid because again you're raising the two concerns that you think would result in detriment to the residential amenity of the neighbouring occupiers. It's the proximity and it's the access arrangements.
I just feel that because of all the discussion we've had about the fire risks, and particularly because of the second reading of the paper that it should be, can't remember when Dawn said it was, but we're aware that it's imminent. I just felt that was relevant. If you think it's dangerous, I'm happy for others to say that it should be worded differently. I just feel that we need to move on with this matter now. Thank you.
Yeah, my advice would be to follow the proximity and the access arrangements, because those are matters that you will be able to present in evidence should the applicant appeal against your decision to refuse.
Okay, Susie, you got that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Partially because I feel like the fact that it's close.
Edric, you fine? Okay, we'll go to a vote. We've been hanging around forever.
Sorry, I don't understand. Does proximity include the fact that it will be dangerous if it catches on fire? Does it, and noise and everything else? Does it include all those things as a subsection of proximity?
I think, Councillor Kate, what the discussion that's been had and the proposal that Councillor Hart put forward initially before the Vice Chair was going to propose. The proposal was proximity, access arrangements, and safety. And again, we've had the debate, the discussion about making sure that the decision you make you can successfully defend. And I think that if you go with those points as to your justification for refusal, you will be able to defend those.
With respect, you haven't answered my question. If it goes to appeal, we need to be able to talk about fire and other things, and that needs to be wrapped up in our refusal reasons. Is that in our fire refusal reason or not?
Strongest reason.
That's not in the reason for refusal that Councillor Hart has just put forward to the committee to vote on.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Martin in now, Helen, because you're being a bit nitpicky.
Well, it was just to say, you know, if the application is refused, if that's what members choose to do on the grounds that are currently in the motion, and it goes to appeal, then matters of fire safety can be raised by the parties with the inspector. You know, if those are raised, then the inspector has to take those into account. But Mr. Trafford's advice to you, which I concur with, is that if you're minded to refuse the application, you need to have reasons for refusal that we think will stack up and be defendable at the appeal. And I would concur with his advice.
Okay, we've got to move on. We've been talking about this for a long time. Susie, you're happy with your proposal? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm happy to take officer advice.
Okay, and Edric, you're happy?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we're going to go for it. All those who are in favour of refusal, along with their 11. Any against?
2.
And any abstentions? None. Okay, so it is refused. Thank you. I'm now going to suggest that we take a 10-minute comfort break and be back here by about 10 past, just maybe a minute later. Right, who's missing? Susie. Okay. Oh, and Helen, we've lost Helen. She's gone. Right. Susie. Susie, where are you? No, we can't carry on because we need her to be here. Here she is. Okay. Righty-ho, we're all back now, or who are going to be here. We're going to be moving on to item number, I think, 7 now, and this is the golf course. And Ed, your job.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, members. Yes, this is application 2024/0750/full at Farrington Golf Club, Marsh Lane, Stoneaston. Quite a long application description there, so I've sort of broken that down a bit for you. There's basically 3 components. So expansion of existing sporting facilities. So that includes the construction of a family putting course, outdoor gym, 3 outdoor pickleball courts, including children's play park and a cabana, and conversion of an existing greenkeepers building into indoor pickleball courts. Second component is overnight accommodation, and there's 2 bits to that. There's 48 eco cabins in 12 buildings and 9 lodges, and that's billed as partly in replacement to permitted touring caravan pitches. It's an extant permission I'll come on to. Thirdly, the erection of a maintenance hub and greenkeepers unit. And then in addition, you've got various alterations to the existing clubhouse and other buildings in that area. So location plan. So to the north, the settlement there you can see is Farrington Gurney. Stoneaston village is off to the southwest, and Poulton and Midsummer Norton are off to the east. Bit more zoomed in there. So as you can see there, the red line, i.e. the application site, doesn't extend to the whole of Farrington golf course. So there's blue line areas which include basically the golf holes. So the application for this site is those three areas there. So local context, as mentioned, Farrington Gurney to the north, Stoneaston to the southwest, Midsummer Norton off to the east there. And just a Google Maps shot for you to show you the sort of the golf course satellite, and you can see there that the holes in a bit more clarity. This is a bit of relevant planning history. This shows a site area of a 2019 consent that has been lawfully started but not fully implemented. So that included rearrangements to the golf course, and the red line at that time was this time the whole of Farrington Golf Course, so all the holes as well. So there were some touring pitches, which were, if you can just see my cursor, touring caravan pitches located in this area off to the side there. And then there's some other sort of spa and accommodation facilities around the driving range. So current proposals, as mentioned, are in three or four main areas. So this is the proposed maintenance hub and greenkeepers facility. The site is accessed off Marsh Lane, and then the access drive sort of loops in around this way. This is the main clubhouse area. So holiday accommodation will be proposed in this area off to the east. So that is the same area as the touring caravan pitches were proposed in the 2019 extant consent. And then over in this area, we've got further holiday accommodation in the form of eco cabins. The additional sporting facilities are in this area. So you can see kind of pickleball courts, there's paddle tennis and putting green in there. And we'll see that in a bit more detail shortly. So that's just a close-up of the maintenance hub and greenkeepers unit would be accessed from here. Staff car parking for the whole site would be included in these parking spaces here. And then moving around, these are holiday accommodation, farmstead style units. Further car parking here. So the existing car park is off to the west there. So that's how these would be accessed. This is a closer in view of the other area of holiday accommodation. So you can see these H-shaped units are the holiday accommodation units. The sporting facilities between the existing clubhouse and these proposed holiday accommodation units. So that's elevations of the maintenance building. So the green is sort of sedum roof and then natural stone walls. The other elevations and a 3D image. So just going back over to the lodges area now. There's three types of units. So there's elevations of one of the units and a 3D. Second type and a 3D. and the third type, and another 3D. This image is a sort of 3D image showing the eco cabins with the sporting facilities in the background, and then the existing clubhouse area further to the north. And that is a site plan of that area. So we've got an existing footpath that runs through that area, the purple line. Elevations of the proposed cabins and a mock-up. And this shows the sport hub area. So you can see the paddle tennis courts, 4 of those, 2 covered, sorry, 4 uncovered, 2 covered. Children's play area up there, family putting, pickleball, outdoor, indoor pickleball there using existing greenkeepers units that would be converted. That's the cabana. Another 3D image. And finally the clubhouse area. So it's really internal arrangements to this area. So that's existing. Can't see too well, unfortunately, but it's essentially a rationalization of that area to upgrade the facilities. So there'd be, you know, a nicer bar area, nicer facilities for the wedding area, which is off down here. That shows it in a bit more detail. The driving range, you sort of upgraded VIP areas for people using the driving range. And then here, this is currently used as a storage area, and this would go to changing. But that's all internal alterations. So just to summarise the consultation responses that we have had an objection from Ston Easton Parish Council. Other stat consultees, no objection. Some of them are subject to conditions. That's all covered in detail in the officer report. Public comments, we've had a mix of views. We've got some supportive comments in terms of economic benefits, community improvements, and people have appreciated how the sort of landscaping has been done. Concerns, sort of noise, privacy and increased traffic, particularly around Marsh Lane area, light pollution, flooding, some sort of concerns that, you know, this is the loss of a golf course facility, or a way of reducing the golf course facility. I mean, it's not that. That's outside the scope of this application. The 2019 application was where the golf course was sort of rearranged a bit, so that's sort of outside the scope of this. But that's what people have flagged. Just in terms of local plan policies, so we are in open countryside here. You know, we're outside of any settlement boundaries. There is policy support, though, for this kind of development within CP1, CP3 and CP4. So CP1 says that developments outside of settlement limits can be permissible where they benefit economic activities or extend the range of local facilities. And CP3 also supports that sort of economic development where aligned with the spatial strategy. CP4 is the policy that deals with rural areas, and that supports, among other things, the expansion, diversification and the expansion or diversification of a business where appropriate. So you've got to look at the sort of constraints of a site in that case, and officer assessment is that this level of development is appropriate in this instance. And yeah, wider sort of benefits. It's obviously bringing holiday accommodation, which potentially increases tourism in the area, sporting facilities that would be accessible to a wide range of people. And in terms of our development management policies, the main or most relevant policies listed there on the left, and the officer assessment is that the proposals comply with all of those and considered to comply with the development plan overall. Other material considerations. So this site is best and most versatile agricultural land, classified as 3A. However, officer assessment is that it's unlikely to be used for farming in the foreseeable future as it's currently.
Can someone let us know when you can hear?
Min?
You can hear us now, can you?
Feedback is we can.
Right, brilliant. Okay, well done, Helen. We can start again. Okay, so our next person to speak on this item is Anne Huckle, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Hopefully you can all hear me.
We can. You have 3 minutes, Anne.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon. My name is Anne Huckle, a resident of Clapton, a hamlet adjacent to Farrington Park, and a member of the Ston Easton Parish Council. I support the unanimous decision of the Parish Council to object to the Farrington Park planning application. The application to turn a golf course that is established in open countryside into effectively a holiday park is inappropriate. I and other residents are concerned about noise from traffic, events, additional sporting and play activities, and from the 48 eco cabins and 9 lodges that Farrington Park proposed to build. Also of great concern are the levels of ambient lighting.
And you've gone mute. Somehow you're yeah.
Sorry,
you're back.
can you hear me now?
Go back a sentence, please.
Okay. Also of great concern are the levels of ambient lighting caused by such a development. The land is crisscrossed by footpaths that link Terrace Wood and Langley's Wood, footpaths that link the nearby villages of Clapton, Ston Easton and Farrington Gurney. The land borders a bridle path and access to the nearby Mendip Way. Construction on the scale of the application will change forever this open landscape. The erection of eco-pods and lodges does not blend with the current landscape, and Somerset will lose valuable wide open green space for use by residents of every socio-economic group, rather than just those who can afford Farrington Park fees. Additionally, the actions of Farrington Park over the last 6 months have shown that they appear to have little respect for either the community or the environment. They have knowingly accessed land contrary to current planning permissions, ignored weight restrictions on Langley's Lane, constantly left Langley's Lane dangerously covered in mud from hundreds of lorry movements dumping thousands of tons of earth, destroying verges, hedges and pull-in places for vehicles on this single track lane. In my view, this is not the right location for a holiday park type development, but should you take a different view, then it should be with the direction that current footpaths remain unchanged both in routes and surfacing, that lighting meets the strictest requirements for the lowest impact on the environment, and that all access associated with the development traffic is not via the farm track off Langley's Lane, but via the current Farrington Park main entrance, or better still, directly from the A37. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll take these comments into account when considering the application.
Thank you very much, Anne. The next person we have is Nigel Shelton.
Excuse me. No, you know, is that changed? Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, Chair.
Okay, so Nigel Shelton, please. Okay, Nigel, you have 3 minutes. Oh, yeah, you still got
Thank you very much. I speak in support of this as one of the ecologists, head of the ecology team that was engaged for the project. We were engaged early in 2023 and undertook a full habitat and condition assessment of the site, as well as assessing the protected species in June of that year. This has informed the early design of the project and 3 subsequent reports, which took an iterative process, taking into account different design stages. Excuse me. As you would expect with our golf course, the habitats were generally of quite low value, but there were some areas identified of higher value, which were fed into early stages of the design process. In particular, there are areas of tree lines running east to west across the site with mature trees, the northern part of the site, and also potentially lines running north and south. As well as that, we identified the proximity Rush Hill Wood directly on the northwest boundary, and Wellow Brook very much on the southeast tip. The site also lies within proximity of 2 very important European sites for, I'm not supposed to use that term anymore, 2 important protected sites for bat species, particularly greater and lesser horseshoe. So that was always a material consideration. Early conversations about design resulted in elements of it either being discontinued or revised plans to focus developments in area of primarily they get primarily short mown areas of grassland and avoiding areas of higher impact. Effectively, we were given a bit of a blank canvas to inform the design team and the developers of the project. So we focused on areas of lower value, but also identified areas where we could strengthen and improve things through landscape design. At an early stage, we identified that lighting could be an issue because of the sensitivity of the bat species. And we always take the approach to better to get in early and then come back from it if you need to, rather than go in low and then have to go up. So the lighting design has always been sensitive with that there. That survey informed the survey needs and the risks based on the construction and the habitats present, and also how effectively the operation of the site there. In essence, we found very similar to the 2016 report that supported the previous application. However, we did find a difference with great crested newts and found those to be present in ponds. So those have been dealt with by way of the district-wide licence for the current works that are ongoing. Bats unsurprisingly scoped in, and they're with the distance from the North Somerset and Mendip Hills and the Mells SACs. I've already mentioned greater and lesser horseshoe bats. We were aware of the mandatory planning guidance for works within the SAC. Okay, that was quick. And we've applied that guidance, although the site lies 2 to 3 kilometres outside, where it is mandatory as a matter of best practice. Our work's been informed by that. We undertook monthly surveys, 2 types of surveys, May to October 2024. So we have a very good picture across areas of the site and how bats are using it, particularly the SAC species. But we also broke that analysis down into 3 categories. So not forgetting with common and widespread bats, and also the species that fall in between. In terms of the protected site species, there are very low numbers using the site. 2 belts showed commuting, but in the areas for development, literally over an 8-month period, a total count of 5 or 6 bats, very low. We've undertaken a habitat regulations assessment to determine whether the works are likely to impact the bats and the site, and in that used the Natural England supplementary advice, and have taken it through the process, which found de minimis impacts, especially with the lighting design, with the light spill being negligible. It falls to not less than 0.5 lux within 3 metres of source, and using low level lighting in the warm end of the spectrum, which are all bat friendly. stemming on from that, there is a management plan.
Yeah, can I sort of ask you to wind up a little bit, Nigel, because you've had your 3 minutes, I believe.
Right. Yeah. With the management plan to control the risks through construction, and the last point is landscaping. That has always been designed to strengthen the connectivity through the site. And the one thing that I've not mentioned is BNG, which delivers the 40% BNG.
Okay, thank you very much. Cheers. Right. Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Sean Hughes, please. And thank you, Sean. You have 3 minutes, Sean. Okay.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Sean Hughes. I'm sure some of you already know me, but for those who don't, I'm a councillor on behalf of the Somerset Council, and I'm speaking today in support of the application. So for decades, Farrington Golf Club has been an important part of the village and the wider area in an increasingly challenging economic environment. So I'm pleased to see an investment that will hopefully secure its future for decades to come. At a time where we are seeing huge changes to the NPPF and a reduction in the protection of green space, these types of facilities become guardians, protecting areas of wildlife and natural beauty from the potential of housing developments. We have seen in recent years how the lack of a 5-year land supply has left councils vulnerable to inappropriate development with the loss of vast areas of green space. We are now seeing large-scale housing developments on our border, and with housing growth comes more demand for jobs. Currently, we have more than 60% of our residents commuting out of our area to work. So the creation of 100 additional jobs is welcome and provides much-needed sustainable work opportunities. Tourism is an important market sector within our region. Farrington Gurney is surrounded by amazing attractions from the cities of Wells, Bath and Bristol to the Mendip Hills and the Ched Valley and Longleat. The accommodation proposed within this development will allow our area to play a larger part in this sector and hopefully will trigger increased tourism within the surrounding towns and villages. So although we sit in the middle of these amazing attractions, we're often passed through on routes to nationally known destinations. This development will create not only a golf club, but a holiday destination. With an increase in visitors, there is the hope that this will help to stimulate growth in both Farrington Gurney and the wider area, increasing footfall in local businesses and high streets. Local accessibility is important, and the business model clearly will need the active support of local residents if it's going to succeed. Therefore, I'm hopeful that this will develop a sports and leisure facility for local residents that's inclusive of children and families, not just to encourage the sport of golf, but for other sports such as paddle tennis. So in summary, I'm sure you can appreciate the benefits that this has to offer in protecting our green space, providing sustainable employment and promoting tourism and economic growth within our region. So for those reasons, I hope you will support and permit this application. Thank you.
And thank you, Sean. Cheers. Right, our next person is Tony Bevan. I can't read it properly on the thing. Where are you, Tony? Oh, there you are.
I'm in the chair almost.
Okay, you have 3 minutes as well.
Thank you. I think this is a great idea. I am a local resident of Shepton Mallet. I live about a mile from here, but I've been in Somerset for about 11 years or so now. I'm also an incompetent golfer, but I have played my golf recently at Farrington Park for the last 10 years or so. And in doing so, I got to know another fairly incompetent golfer whose name was Paul Harwood, who was the previous owner of Farrington Park. And I know that he's put in a considerable effort in the 22 years that he's owned it, considerable investment and improvements, striving to make the club viable and profitable. In fact, I believe that there are very few golf clubs in the country that actually do break even or make profits. I know that he was frustrated with the timescales and the costs and the necessary complexity of the planning regulations and hurdles that he had to go through. And it was probably following the COVID shutdown and everything that he decided to consider selling it, but only to a similarly minded organisation who would ensure Farrington Park's long-term future. And he found that similar-minded organisation in 360 Golf, who now own Farrington, who incidentally, when he bought it that 20-odd years ago, he commissioned 360 Golf to do a feasibility study and a report back on what he should do as the new owner to develop the facilities. So it's quite interesting that they've come back to buy it. And in the last 2 years, I've got to know them quite well. And to be honest with you, I'm very, very impressed with their experience, their motivation, their integrity, and their friendliness. And I know that they work on many, many golf courses across the country, many of which are the top level golf courses. And they asked me to write a letter of support. Now, before I agreed to do that, I read all the plans and the specialist submissions and the local objections and the responses on the portal. I read what the proposal involved. That was a wider appeal beyond golf. I read about things like pickleball and paddle tennis, which I knew nothing about. But in doing a bit of research about that and asking my children and some friends of mine, I realised now that pickleball and paddle tennis are growing like a rocket across this country and elsewhere. It's becoming extremely popular. The proposal really involves facilities for all ages and families, and also accommodation for visitors. I looked through the environmental and ecological requirements on there, and I was flabbergasted to see the extent of those, but they seem to have addressed those requirements to the highest level. And they tried to modify their plans accordingly. A lot of time, effort and cost and professionalism has gone into the plan. We've heard the benefits about local employment and about these state-of-the-art facilities, bringing new visitors into the area. So I, and also Paul Harwood, who I spoke to yesterday, are great supporters of the plan, and we urge the committee to approve this application.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Cheers. Thanks. Okay, the next speaker is James
Pierce, yes.
Pierce,
yes.
Here, Pierce. Please. Thank you, James. You have 3 minutes also.
That's a good start. Thank you very much, Chair and Councillor. I am a local business owner based out of Lady Farm in Chelwood. My name is James Pierce, and we have collectively followed the application with much interest because as a local business operators, it's so important for us to see these businesses like the Farrington Park application come to fruition, because it's not just going to employ people during the construction phase, but onwards and upwards in terms of, I think they're going to be employing over 100 people, and that's just as an employment, new jobs basis, but also all of the contractors and all of the suppliers, they've got a commitment to sourcing local products, which will help other businesses locally as well. So obviously they're great operators. I've seen firsthand what they've done, and I've got every confidence in their commitment to the ecological, sustainable and conservationist environment. And I think that the whole proposal fits in very well with the environment, and also from a sporting and leisure activity basis, I think for people to be able to get out on a non-member basis, i.e. free for all, not entirely free, obviously, but affordable for all, especially young people who are probably quite handicapped in terms of space in their schools and so forth for sporting and leisure activities. I think to be able to have somewhere on their doorstep, or even between Bath and Bristol, to be able to have people living in an urban environment to be able to get out into the countryside, and a beautiful space with the facilities for sporting activities and family activities and tourism, to support local businesses in the environment. I think I've beaten the 3 minutes.
You've done exceptionally well.
Can I make one last point?
You may.
On behalf of the application, I really do think it's so important for our local community to have these activities taking place, because it's not easy out there, as you well know. And I think that anything that can support local businesses and bring people to our wonderful county is a major plus point. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your contribution. Cheers. Thank you. And next we go to, an old face here. Mr. Tom Killen. He's not that old. He's not that old. No, he's walking a bit creaky there. Okay, Tom, you get 3 minutes. I'm not going to give you any extra.
No, I thought that might be the case, Nick. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those of you who don't know me, I think most of you do. My name is Tom Killen. I'm Chairman of Stone Easton Parish Council. This application is an important one, and the predicted economic benefits are recognised and welcomed, and you may be minded to approve it. Your officer does, however, concede that the proposals will lead to significant new forms of development and an intensification of uses on a site that extends to over 180 acres. Those who have supported the application no doubt have supported the principle of the development, but would expect any adverse impacts to be mitigated as well. It is recognised that welcome changes have been made to the application, and however worthy this application may be to the local economy and tourism, does not mean that adverse impacts should be ignored. As such, there are a few comments that need to be made. Firstly, in respect of lighting, getting it wrong could lead to serious light pollution as well as affecting the ecology. The site is located on the Stone Easton Plateau in close proximity to heritage assets. From this open landscape, light is seen for many miles, with Bristol Airport and the sporting facilities at Rivlington both some miles away being easily seen. This site should not also become an intrusive site. And the wording in condition 5, as recommended by your officer, tying the application to specific types of lighting is welcomed. We trust that the committee will put down a marker that it will be strictly enforced if permission is granted. Column lighting in particular should be restricted. It is disappointing that the applicants did not consult with the residents of the neighbouring properties, Country Ways and North Lawn prior to the submission of the application, and we remain concerned that they have still not addressed the concerns of these residents fully. The maintenance hub, as we have heard, will be intrusive, has been poorly sited, will affect the amenity of Country Ways, and a better site could have been provided. North Lawn is the property to the southwest of the proposed cabins. It is a large and historic house, and the more intensive development will have an impact. The applicants concede that this by now proposing a bund. Unfortunately, the amended proposals state that a bund up to 3.5 metres in height will be provided. This is meaningless, and the proposed bund will not be of sufficient length to conceal the new development. And if you aren't minded to refuse this application, we ask that a condition is imposed whereby the bund must be of a height of 3.5 metres and of a design that ensures North Lawn is fully protected. The final point relates to the construction management plan, and this is of particular importance to many local residents. Having started works relating to the previous approved application, lorries have been travelling to and from the site by taking a totally inappropriate route across fields and through the neighbouring village of Clapton, leading to inconvenience for residents, huge amounts of mud and massive potholes which this council will have to repair. This has all been done in contravention of any agreed route. If approved, proposed condition 6 stipulates that a CMP must be approved, but again the council asks that the marker is put down that the condition must be enforced and that any access must be appropriate, and we suggest directly from the A37. The parish council has objected to the adverse impacts and has objected due to the adverse impacts and these not being sufficiently mitigated.
I hope that you will take these comments into account in considering this application.
And thank you very much, Tom. And you were spot on there.
Thank you.
Really good. Thank you.
I think I've done it once or twice.
Yeah, that timing is good. You've done it once or twice, yeah. The next person we have is Councillor Mike Hedges from Farrington, PC. And you will also have 3 minutes. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mike Hedges. I'm the immediate past chairman of Farrington Gurney Parish Council, and I'm here to express the views of that body and our residents. Now, whilst the development is totally within the Mendip Council area, it's immediately adjacent to our southern boundary. The only access to the site is via Marsh Lane, which is within our parish area. And to set the context, I would describe Marsh Lane as a single track country lane bordered by a high bank and hedgerow to its west and residential properties to the east, some of which abut directly onto the highway. My comments address the perceived impacts on the residents and environments of Farrington Gurney. We fully accept the potential benefits, but there are some concerns we want to express. And there are two concerns and one straightforward objection. And these relate to potential traffic impacts, the siting of the proposed mower shed and distribution hub, and finally, the potential flooding impacts. Firstly, traffic. We all love traffic. This is a concern. We've coped over the past 35 years with the volume of traffic using the site, but unlike the Baines Highways Department and their officers, they look at constructs. We actually live with the experience of this usage. We anticipate that there will be a significant increase in traffic volumes in Marsh Lane as a result of a number of factors. Firstly, 18 holes of golf gives a turnaround time of approximately 5 hours for vehicles. 12 holes, about 3. Therefore, more tee times are available to be used, bringing an increase in traffic movement. The current model of use at the club is based on club membership. If this changes to pay and play, then there will be less ownership in the local community by users and perhaps less care in observing speed limits and similar items using Marsh Lane. With on-site accommodation, visitors will not only spend all their time within the club, but will travel to other local tourist hotspots such as Bath, Bristol, Wells, Cheddar and the Mendips, resulting in more traffic movements. Additionally, residents have just received a letter warning them to expect an increase in heavy and sometimes articulated vehicles using the lane during the construction period. My next comments are about the mower shed and distribution hub, and this is an objection. The proposed siting is objected to by the council as it is immediately inside the club entrance and thus adjacent to residential properties, and we feel there must be better locations within the site for this facility. The noise associated with the operation of such a base on a golf club is significant. For example, commencing at 5 AM in the morning in summers, 6:30 in winter. Additionally, the noise of delivery and collection for the whole of the site will be significant. The proposed siting and design has direct consequences to our residents within our community and feeds into our next major concern, and that is flooding. And this is a concern. Marsh Lane currently experiences significant levels of water runoff, and we feel that with the roofing area of the proposed hub, the hard standing around it, that runoff will become significant and cause increased flooding along Marsh Lane and particularly at the bottom, which becomes impassable on occasions.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. You were pretty close to your 3 minutes.
Nearly made it.
It's good.
Thank you.
You made it. Cheers. Right. Okay. Our next one is Mr. Alan Broadway, please. And Alan, you have 3 minutes also.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alan Broadway. I'm one of the joint agents for the applicant Maple 360 for this application for Farrington Park and Country Club. We've listened to a number of objectors and their concerns. We made a pre-app submission to the council, which was incredibly positive initially. We are now fully policy compliant, as planning officer mentioned, with policy CP1, CP3 and CP4. The only consultee to object is Ston Easton Parish Council. All other consultees are satisfied and not objecting to the scheme. We heard mention of drainage being an issue. We have the full support of the FFRA, who've looked at the scheme in detail and have commented accordingly, and we've addressed all of their concerns. More specifically to Mr. Smith's concerns with regards to drainage, I met with Mr. Smith and Mr. Cavendish, who are the only two neighbours who actually adjoin the site, and discussed how we could address their concerns. And with drainage for Mr. Smith, we're proposing an open ditch trench that links up with the water course that runs along the current second fairway. Also, we're proposing a bund which would go some ways towards blocking sound and the visual impact of the maintenance hub, which is positioned there, by the way, because it's convenient for people that use the site to have somewhere close to the entrance to be shown where to go, etc. So it's more a case of it being in a convenient position for the site as much as anything, but we do feel it's well screened. There was mention of by the online Teams objector about the use of Langley's Lane, and I think Tom Killen mentioned it as well. We were invited along to the parish council meeting, not really knowing what to expect, but to be met with a number of objectors about the use of Langley's Lane and what lorries were doing. And I think with any building application or any project that's running next to you, even if it's only an extension next door, there are some inconveniences and lorries turning up or skips lorries dropping off and this kind of thing that no matter how small the project, there are some inconveniences. But what we got from the parish council meeting was that a number of Langley's Lane residents were very unhappy and that things weren't being done exactly as per the development plan, and so we immediately stopped those. The very next day, we stopped those lorries going through, and we're looking at investigating the whole matter and going to make sure that when they recommence, they're doing it totally in line with the transport and construction plan.
That's great. I've let you run over a little bit.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely fine. To get your point. Cheers.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Bye. For now. Okay. We've all heard everything. We've heard the people. We've heard the presentation. So we're now our turn.
Rob.
So Rob is first. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, there's three things I've pulled out of all this. First of all, clarification of footpaths. On the demonstration, you said there was a footpath going through it. The lady from the parish council said there was a crisscross of footpaths. So can we clarify that, please? The second thing is this bund. The chair of the parish council asked for a minimum height. Would it be possible to do that, please? That seems quite sensible. And the traffic plan, there was talk about going from the A37. I mean, Marsh Lane at one point did join up with the A37, so that should be quite straightforward. I wonder if we could have a comment on that and whether we could put that into the traffic plan, please.
Okay, Ed.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in terms of the footpaths, there is more than one footpath going across the site. There's a couple of footpaths. The main one I showed on the plans goes through one of the accommodation areas. Actually, this one might be, no, let's bring out the other one. There we go. That one. Yes. So there's a footpath which runs through one of the proposed accommodation areas. There's another footpath which sort of runs through the existing golf course and loops up back around, follows the main access track, and then they join up further down here and carry off on to the south of the site. So the proposals don't involve any footpath diversions, but the comment we got back from our public rights of way officer was, even if in this area, because you can see there's some land form changes, any changes that would affect the footpath would require a diversion, you know, even if you're just changing the surface or anything like that. That's not what's proposed. But if that were the case, footpath diversion would be needed. There is a condition as well proposed to be attached for a wayfinding scheme. So apparently the footpaths are not that well marked through the site, and you can kind of get lost. It's walking across golf course essentially, isn't it? So there is a proposed condition for a wayfinding scheme to. So that's that. In terms of the bund, yes. So the landscaping plan that refers to the bund says minimum height of 3.5. So that would need to be built to the plan. The plan is a scalable drawing, so we would be able to measure off what the height of that is shown as, and that's what it would have to be built to. In terms of access off the A37, I think that might be problematic because obviously that's a primary route, but if I can defer to our highways specialist.
Thank you very much, Ed. Yeah, to the very best of my knowledge, at the point at which Marsh Lane used to attach to the A37 is currently on a fairly sharp bend on the A37 with a climbing lane. My initial reaction would be that it would be almost impossible to find a safe solution for construction traffic onto that part of the A37 without seeing something in front. I mean, what we're looking at is what we're looking at, and the construction traffic coming through Marsh Lane. And that's what, at the moment, you guys need to assess. If it were deemed that you wanted us to go away and talk to the applicant about potentially coming off the A37, my initial reaction is that that's unlikely to be a safe and suitable access.
Okay, thank you for that. Rob, you all right with that? So I'm gonna...
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going back to the wayfaring fund. Can we add that in as a condition?
Ed, yeah.
That is already proposed as condition, condition number 8.
Okay, so we got that. Edric.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo Emma's comments about where the climbing lane is. This on a, as it's been said, is Tom Killen will know well. It's on a nasty bend, and lorries parking the lay-by there as well, on just off the side. So it would be totally inappropriate to have 30-ton muck trucks coming out of there. I wouldn't have thought there'd be a safe egress at all. Sorry to so be a bit negative now. While I'm talking, so I always do. I'm slightly conflicted on this. It's my division, so I thought I'd try and speak early on it. I can also see the benefits of employment, as Councillor Hughes said. Although it's it's in Somerset, it's not in Baines. There's going to be lots of development down the road. We're building houses. We need jobs. I can also see the chagrin of Mr. Smith with the maintenance hub being supposed to be so near his property. And is there any way that you could go back to developers and move that somewhere? It's a huge site. Surely you can stick a maintenance hub more at the way rather than cheesing off when you're near neighbours, would be my initial comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Edric. Ed, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just a couple of points of clarification. Condition 6, construction and servicing management plan. Clause D includes a map to identify which routes to be used by construction vehicles to access the site. So that element would be controlled by the local planning authority. In terms of the location of the maintenance hub, appreciate it is a big site. We've sort of dealt with the application as before us. There is a separation distance of 95 metres between the maintenance hub and county ways. So we didn't think that that was insufficient. I mean, it potentially could go somewhere else on the site. But as I say, that's what we are, the scheme one we've got before us. Yeah, I mean, personally, I think because you've got that 95 metre separation distance, plus there is proposed landscaping within that area, is that bad enough to refuse? In my opinion, no. There could be a better solution, perhaps, but the one before us, I don't think it's bad enough to refuse, personally.
Okay, thank you, Ed, for that. Andrew, do we have anybody else who would like to speak now? Susie?
Well, just to say that, or to echo Tom Killen's comments, can we actually ensure that the bund is at least 3.5 metres high?
Ed, I think you've said that already, haven't you? Ed's condition, we can condition it, yeah, to make sure it happens.
We could add a very specific condition to do that. The bund would be I mean, probably best if we specify 3.5 metres rather than at least, because obviously you don't want it to get too tall either, potentially. Further details to include. Yeah, or probably more something, further details of the bund to be provided, yeah.
Okay, thank you both. Barry?
Thank you, Chair. Just going to Ed's last comment, the bund has got a height, but it's also got a length issue. Is the length of it going to be shown accurately on the plan that you planners can go back and say it's not done properly? And the second quick point, Emma's absolutely right. That lane at the top of A37 was closed off for a very good reason. It kept killing people. So I wouldn't personally like to see it reopened, driving it quite often. And the last thing, these facilities, which sound very good, lots of employment, would they be available? We talk about them going to the locals and children could use them. Would they just go in on an as and when basis and use these facilities? Because that would be really good if they could. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Ed, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think the on the first point, the details of the bund, we'd suggest a pre-commencement condition that further details of the bund, a full set of plans are submitted, so control the length of it and the height of it, and any additional landscaping features, planting, whatever, that could be done as a pre-com condition. A37, I think we probably all agree on that one. As my understanding of the proposals are that, pay per play is possible. That's obviously part of the business model that's being put forward. Not sure if we could condition really having it that as opposed to a members only club, but I think the whole model or part of the rationale for this diversification scheme is to open it up to more segments of the community rather than it being a private members club. I think the whole idea is to open it up to more people. So it would be strange to restrict that to membership only.
Thank you, Ed. The question was more addressed to the agent rather than you. I appreciate.
Okay, thank you, Ed. And Barry, you never had your microphone on as being pointed out. Right, next we're going back to Dawn, because Susie's already spoken.
So yeah, one thing I've noticed about Somerset Council is we always talk about this being an old county, and what that message sends is that it's not a place to come and have a business. It's not a place to raise a family. It's not a place to stop on the way on holiday. And this is an opportunity to show that we are in support of development. We're in support of local businesses. Mr. Pierce said about the local produce that's going to be sourced. You know, we've got, these are guardians, as Sean pointed out, these are guardians of the environment. I think the biggest issue we've got here is the maintenance building. And I'm wondering if that can be moved further south on that little plot of land to maybe help, if that's possible, if it can't be moved anywhere else. And I do support what Barry said really about the membership. I know when the Newt opened, they offered local membership, and I'm hoping the applicants can hear us now, that it would be really nice if there was something special for the people who live locally, so that they can use the site a little bit more regularly. But otherwise, I think a business like this wants to be part of the community. They want the community involvement. So it would be nice if they could, you know, have more conversations, as they said they've already had. So I think, you know, I think there's one of the other things that struck me is often people come out to object. And if you look at the portal, there's more in support than there are objections, which I think is interesting, because we as human beings are happy to say we don't like something. But the fact that 24 of the people came forward on this portal to say that they are happy with that, I think is really interesting. And there's less objection. So those are just my thoughts at this point.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. I will add one question. Somerset, or one reply. Somerset is an old county, and it was originally named after the land of the Summer people.
No, I know, but I'm talking about age. You know, we constantly say this is old, it's old, it's old. And if we change the language, we might actually find that things would benefit in this county.
Yeah.
More money.
Agreed. Susie?
That's fine, thank you. Dawn covered my points. It was about maybe doing something for locals in terms of a reduced cost membership.
Thank you. Martin D.
Listen to the debate, and I looked at the form. So there are extensive conditions to this application, which I think is a good thing. And in the light of that and the answers I've received, I'd like to propose that we accept the recommendation.
Seconded.
Right, thank you. We've still got Phil had his hand up, so I'm just going to ask him what his question is, please.
Thank you, Nick. I'd probably agree with most of what's been said. I'm glad that we've sorted out the bund, because that was one of my biggest worries. The other biggest worry I've got is around the travel plan and actually Marsh Lane. The travel plan talks a lot about cycling and cyclists. Well, it's never going to happen in this location. So and I couldn't find reference to the travel plan, but is there a like a structure when people will come in and out at different times rather than all on a Saturday or all on a Friday, etc. And the other one was the flooding issue. It seems as though everybody seems it's all right, except for the local people saying it's not.
Thank you, Phil. Ed, would you like to come back?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So the travel plan would be controlled by planning obligations. So it's not there yet. We would, or our travel plan colleagues would negotiate its content and everything in the normal way that they do. And as I say, that would be controlled through a planning obligation. So Section 106 rather than condition. On the flooding side of things, I would say that you can see on the website there were 7 responses from the LLFA on there. So there were, you know, this was their original response, and then it went through 7 backs and forths to get to them being happy. They're happy now. So it has been scrutinised. I'm not flood risk expert, but they are, and they're giving it a thumbs up.
Right. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Phil. We've got a proposal on the table. I'm just going to take Adam first, and then we'll go to a vote. So, Adam?
Just before the...
Oh, no, you're just in a minute. Yeah. Okay. Adam?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to clarify, when we vote, could this be on with the additional condition on the details of the bund, 3.5 metres bund, as expressed by some of the objectors, including Parish Chair Mr. Killam there? And also, is there I'm kind of very supportive of this sort of proposal because it looks to me like a sustainable tourism plan to diversify countryside, use existing facilities and so on. But at the same time, we've kind of got to minimise the impact on the immediate neighbours. Sorry, immediate neighbours. So, is there something we can do about the maintenance hub and that require maybe a plan for that area by condition as well, to minimise the impact on the neighbour who's expressed great concern about impact on their residential amenity? So if we vote to approve this, could there be a condition on requiring additional details of that, or would that not work?
Okay, Adam, Martin's going to come in before we go to a vote.
Just in relation to personally the Bunds condition, I understood that was being suggested so that the detail of that is tied down by an additional condition. So if you were voting to approve, it would include that additional condition. The problem with the maintenance hub is that is shown on the drawings. So if you approve the application, it will be located there. Now, if members are unhappy with the location of the hub, I think the choices are either to refuse the application because of that, and you've heard Ed's view on his view about whether that's sustainable. To defer for further discussions with the applicant about the hub, or to that's really it. I think those are your two choices. I think if you're looking to move the hub, to be honest.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Tony, as the other ward or division councillor, you wish to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
You haven't got your mic on.
Apologies. I'm thinking about this from two different points of view. Yes, we need facilities. We need to get people in the area and get them to stay there. I don't consider myself that old, to be honest, but I do understand what you mean. The problem I've got is a more general one. We've heard of all my colleagues here will be able to lay testament to the fact that we have a flooding problem. Are we about to make that worse in that particular area? Because we've heard from 2 or 3 people that the lane that is going to be used floods. So is there something we can do to mitigate that? I am a businessman and I would never want to stop people doing well in business, but that can't be at detriment to all those around you. We've heard from Tom, who I think sat directly behind me, and Anne Huckle, who both live in villages, and they're the ones that are saying that this is going to affect our lives in such a way that they'll change for good. Do you see what I mean? No?
Okay,
we're not making any sense.
Thanks, Tony. Ed or Simon?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to come back on a couple of those points. So there is condition 4, does secure a surface water drainage scheme pre-commencement. So, further details, even though it's already been through that level of scrutiny with the LFA. The LFA are asking for even more details, including infiltration testing, confirmation of groundwater levels. So we've got that additional control. Just in terms of the maintenance hub and sort of potential mitigations. So there are landscaping proposals around sort of between the maintenance hub and the dwelling country ways. So this plan sort of shows that, and that, as I said earlier, that distance between country ways there and the maintenance hub is 95 metres.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Tony, you want to come back?
Yeah, just very quickly, honestly. The one other thing that worries me is the amount of extra traffic on the site. You've got here, get this right now there's 24 caravan sites, but the proposal of 48 eco cabins. I think it means plus 12 buildings and 9 lodges. That's an awful lot more traffic going backwards and forwards pretty much all the time. That's one of my main worries.
Okay, thank you, Tony. I don't know whether Ed can come back on that one, really.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I would again defer to highways on the traffic side, please.
Okay, Emma?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it is a recognised industry level that a holiday accommodation will only attract approximately 4 vehicle movements per day. And on a site such as this, often much lower because they are going to the site for the site facilities. It's not as if they're going and staying in a B&B somewhere and travelling around. Yes, there will be levels of visits to Bristol, Bath, Wells, Cheddar, maybe. There will be levels of visits, but it won't be 4 movements per day every day. It's very unlikely on this site.
Okay, thanks. I think, Ed, you'd like to come back in again?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just in case it allays members' fears, condition 10, proposed condition 10 secures bicycle storage and electric bicycle loan hire scheme preoccupation. So that's basically we would require details of bicycle storage area and a sort of loan hire scheme, so that would be available to visitors to the site. So that means places like Midsummer Norton, Poulton. But I'm sure the Vice Chair would agree that you can get quite far on an electric bike. So you can visit some stuff around, I suppose.
Okay, thanks for that. Martin would like to come back in again.
Just on procedure, just to remind members where we are, we've got a proposal from Councillor Hart, seconded by Councillor Dimery, to accept the other way around, was it? Oh, right, beg your pardon, I did lie. To go with the officer recommendation, but with the additional condition regarding the bund. So that's the substantive motion you've got at the moment.
Okay, do you want to say something, Susie?
Did we need to put anything in around enforcing the lighting, or is that just like our enforcement actually not going to be adequate for that anyway?
Yeah,
we've got a condition on lighting, so condition 5, lighting compliance. So all external lighting shall be installed strictly in accordance with. They've already submitted a lighting scheme, basically.
Right, thank you for that. There you are, Susie. That's answered your question, and I think we've all had to say we should go to a vote now. And so let's start straight away. Who is in favour of going with the officer recommendation as proposed by Martin and Susie?
Eight.
All those against?
1, 2, 3, 4.
And abstentions? No, so it's carried. The golf course will be happening. Okay, thank you. That's that business done. And now we'll move on to number 8, I think. Okay. Okay, is Carlton here to take this one, or is someone else?
Simon presenting if you just.
Simon presenting, are you? Okay. Dead.
Carlton, you're on the call, I think, remotely. Can you send a copy of your presentation through to Ed, please?
Sound like that.
We have an impromptu couple of minute break. Yeah.
And they sold all the good bits, what they've done. I got the rentals, so I thought one day I might see if we can, might be like a pound or two. Bring them up to special. Yeah, I saw you advertise one, that's what made me do it. Yeah, got some consultants, so. I'll do it. Yeah, I think so.
Probably just sit here for 3 hours, and when it gets to your turn to speak, what was I going to say now?
Yeah, I had to write it down, please.
Did you get the report? Have you noticed? Wells. Theo's the author of it.
Okay.
And usually I say to my wife, can you alter that down, make sure it says amended? I think she's done it. She hasn't so much.
Well, no one knows it, don't worry.
We're trying to get them back for every month. They should get someone to do it. It's near enough to the executive.
That's what's going on.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's meaningless.
We're ready.
Almost people, when you start putting it up to that level, people expect something in return, and it's like the same.
Well, the problem is, young people are already getting
Yeah.
Yeah.
5% people tolerate it because they know that it counts, finance at the time. When it starts chipping up, they think, well, why aren't you doing that?
Yeah.
It's really about 80% of the fundraising is travelled out in social care. 80%. They should be done directly to themselves.
Social care should be sorted out. Yeah. And it should be integrated with the NHS. Yeah, it's not two separate things, is it?
No.
There you go. Right, I'll leave it to.
We're only going to be a second or two. Well, maybe a minute. Yeah, for those online, we've just had a little bit of a technical problem, but it's only a quick one, I'm assured.
I thought I had a loud enough voice. Given that we didn't have to discuss Selwood Park, I'm just very concerned that our agendas are too heavy, and maybe we need to consider, or somebody needs to just look at them more carefully, because it's already 5:30. We've still got something to go, and if we'd had Selwood, yeah. So
Yeah, we're gonna be looking at that, I
Yeah,
think,
perfect.
okay? To
Thank you
try and
very
lighten the load a little bit. Right, Si, can we go? No,
Oh, right, okay.
okay, we're gonna go for this one now. It's another Froome application. Okay, are we listening, Dawn?
Chairman,
Okay?
Yeah.
Right. Hopefully we can go now.
Be careful, wind coming through there.
Members for that break. So this last application is Carl's application, and he's asked me to present it today. It is an application concerning the Lucky Chance building on the Portway in Frome, and it's for the installation of roof-mounted photovoltaic panels. So, short presentation, site plan on the screen there. You can see the building. The building is identified as being on one of the important gateways to Frome. And that gateway is identified in the Frome Town Council's neighbourhood plan, which is adopted. So that's an important consideration in the assessment application. You can see the site area. So there's a curtilage to it. So there's some land to the rear of it, which is relevant in that potentially there may be other alternatives that could be explored, so that the building can benefit from the space heating proposals that clearly the roof mounted photovoltaic panels would deliver. So this is the plans that have been submitted, building as existing, and you can see building as proposed. The next slide is probably better because it actually shows you a photograph of the building and the importance of the building within the street scene. So you can see the side elevation where the panels are proposed, and obviously how visible it would be within the street scene. I think if you go to the report pack, members, the key issue in this case is whether or not there are the benefits that would be delivered in terms of the space heating outweigh the harms. So effectively, you've got paragraphs 817 through to 823, where the officer completes that assessment. We've got Rebecca in the room. If you do have any specific concerns about the heritage impacts, so she's provided Carl with some support on the heritage impacts of the proposal, and it's our recommendation that for the reasons as set out in the report, the benefits don't outweigh the harms, and therefore, in accordance with the guidance, we've recommended refusal.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Right, we go straight into public speakers, and I think Jane, who's already been here once, is the first one up on this one. Cheers, you know you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, sorry, it's me again. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. So yes, the report identifies concern over whether the roof is capable of supporting the solar panels. I don't know whether this has been relayed, but we understand that a structural engineer has carried out a survey of the roof's weight-bearing capacity, and the installers have said that they're confident that the roof will sustain the weight of the solar panels that they plan to install. The report also makes reference to the Frome Neighbourhood Plan Policy D2, which is gateway site improvements, saying the development will have a harmful impact on a designated gateway site within Frome. So the policy includes taking account of the guidance in the Frome Town Design Statement, which is also an adopted document. And for the policy in the Town Design Statement which covers Vicarage Street, identifies that the spaces are important movement nodes that should be enhanced, particularly in relation to vehicular, cyclist and pedestrian movements, and also townscape quality. So we would argue that the townscape of this area has already been improved by the applicants, who have confirmed that the building was in a near derelict state with overgrown front and side gardens encroaching on public footpaths and neighbours' gardens. The front wall of the building was crumbling and the back garden was a jungle largely used as a fly tipping zone. The front garden, which is described as a positive open space within the conservation area, was also attracting antisocial behaviour, particularly at night, and is now a lovely flowering garden where local people regularly come to eat their lunch and spend time. The report also states that there's no public benefit to be gained from the scheme, as the solar panels will only benefit the current occupier, and this is a private benefit. The Lucky Chance is a theatre company and a registered charity which exists to benefit the public. The building is used to run training courses and events for the local community and is a great asset to Frome. We would urge councillors to approve the application so that the company can continue to operate in a sustainable way. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, Jane. And next one is Shane. You've been patiently waiting there. Okay, Shane, you get 3 minutes, mate. Okay.
Thank you. Well, I hope I won't need it. Jane has made many of the points I was going to make. It is for the public benefit. They are an excellent theatre company. They're also one of the many groups and individuals in Frome who take part in Frome Hoedown and hoe the weeds outside their theatre. Structural survey has been done. There you can see the solar panels from the road if you really look, but they're going to be black solar panels. We are declared a climate emergency. We're actually in a climate lottery at the moment where different regions of the world get wiped out on regular occurrences. And I just draw your attention to the Institute of Faculty of Actuaries, who released their report this Monday, which I would really suggest you read. Looking at, if we get to 1.5 by 2050, we're looking at a 5% drop in global GDP, 5% drop in the population, about 400 million deaths. If we get to 2 degrees by 2050, we're looking at a 10% drop in GDP, 10% drop in population, about 800 million deaths. If we get to 2 degrees or more by 2050, we're looking at a 25% drop in population, i.e. 2 billion deaths, a 25% drop in GDP. And if we go 3 degrees or more by 2050, we're looking at a 50% drop in human mortality, i.e. about 4 billion deaths. This is a stunning new paper. Professor Tim Lenton, University of Exeter. I would highly recommend you read it. It's not an emergency, it's the ongoing collapse of the climate. So frankly, I'm amazed that things like solar panels on a church for a theatre even need to waste your time on the planning board. So I hope you will be able to pass this without further ado. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. And I'll have a look at that, what you were saying. Cheers. Poppy, you should be online, I believe.
I am. Hello.
Hello. You have 3 minutes to make your case.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Jane, who have sort of said a lot of the things that I was going to say, but I'll go for it. My name's Poppy. I run Wise Children, the theatre company that has set up its base in the old Portway Methodist Church in Frome, which we call the Lucky Chance. We took it over in 2023 and we have slowly and lovingly brought it back into use as our rehearsal space and also the base for the training courses that we run for young theatre makers who come from across the county to train with us. We've also put on a Christmas show in the building for the past 2 years, welcoming in around 2,000 local residents each year, as well as offering all first and primary school children in Frome free tickets for the show. Last year, this scheme was supported by a small arts grant from Frome Town Council. We've applied for planning permission to install solar PV on the roof of the building, as we hope to power the building with electricity generated by solar. We're a publicly funded charity. We receive annual funding from the Arts Council, and being able to reduce our energy bills will ensure we're able to direct more of our resources to our public engagement activities. We're also committed to becoming a net zero building over the next few years, something we obviously can't achieve without generating our own electricity. As far as I understand, Frome Town councillors have voted to grant permission to our application, but the Conservation Officer raised some objections. Several of those objections are really inaccurate, and we really we're grateful to have the chance to respond to them. One of the objections was that the benefit of the solar panels would be for private use. This is not the case. I don't know how this mix-up occurred, but the building is now a public building where we carry out our charitable activities and welcome in our local residents and our local community. The officer said that no structural survey had been done. Again, that's incorrect. The officer questions whether the building's roof void can take the weight of the PV inverters, but at no point have we intended to put the PV inverters in the roof. They'll be housed at ground level in the rear hall of the building. So again, I think there's been some kind of misinformation, miscommunication. Finally, the officer says that the visual impact of solar panels is distasteful because the church is in a conservation area. It's worth noting that the church is not a listed building, and the boundary of the conservation area on the south side of Portway actually dips around the building. There are no other significant buildings to either side of the church. The side of the roof which would have the panels is only fully visible from one residential street, Alexandra Road, although the panels might be seen fleetingly from the corner of the eye of people travelling west up Portway, which is a major route into Frome. Frome Town Council have themselves made an objection to their own policy for this gateway area into central Frome, have themselves approved the application. So it seems strange for this policy now to be kind of quoted back as part of the reason for objecting to the application. We've done everything we can to minimise the visual impact of the panels. They will be located flush to the roof and they will be coloured to match the existing slate tiles. Fixings will be used to prevent damage to the existing slate roof. We have worked with a specialist installer to ensure the design of the panels are the most efficient in terms of energy creation while doing as little as possible to harm the appearance of the building. When we took on the building, it was neglected and run down. We have renovated it, taming the overgrown front and side gardens, clearing the rubbish people were routinely dumping outside the church and in our garden. We keep the place clean and tidy.
I have to ask you to wind up now, Poppy, okay? You've had your 3 minutes.
That'll do. Everyone else has made my points for me, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we listened to the public speakers. We're now coming to us. I think Adam had his hand up first.
Well, thank you. Thanks. Listened to all the speakers. I think there is our conservation officer has concerns about the harm to the not a listed building conservation area and the gateway, and it's a very busy street. Sorry. And like Poppy just said, you probably wouldn't notice it driving through because it's just so busy. There's a very busy roundabout there. There are environmental benefits of this. It's reducing carbon emissions. It's reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It's producing renewable energy. It's a community facility, effectively. Now they've done a great job renovating the building and the site. I subject to other people, I'd just like to propose approval for this, because the environmental benefits of reducing carbon emissions and producing renewable energy outweigh any heritage harm, and I really support this. So there you go. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Adam. I'm going to.
Martin Lovell was first.
Okay, Martin Lovell is the first one.
Chair, I'll simply second Adam's proposal with the ride, obviously contrary to officer recommendation, subject to the rider that we have evidence that this roof can support the panels, which obviously that is in question. So I think the officer can reasonably have that assurance that that is the case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next one is Martin D.
Yeah, I was going to second. It's a very eminent theatre company actually that's housed in there, and it's a great asset to Frome. But also the Cheese and Grain put solar panels on their roof many years ago. I was working there at the time, and it was a fantastic return. Really, really very good thing to do. There's a precedent there, so I entirely approve of this.
So are you seconding Adam?
I think Martin beat me to it.
Oh, Martin did, yeah, sorry. Okay, Martin.
Phil and Dawn do want to speak.
Okay, Phil.
Thank you, Jack. I think this is a worthwhile thing to do. Oak buildings are cold, they're difficult to keep warm, expensive to keep warm, and we need to keep them as in good a condition as we can. And without this, I can see the whole building failing, probably the whole use of the building. The only thing I noticed when you showed the slide, there was a for sale sign outside it. Somebody explain that. Oh, photos.
Interesting. I didn't notice the for sale. Probably somewhere else.
Point of information, that must be an old photo.
Yeah.
It's not there now.
Yeah, I've made my point.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Martin's going to come in a second.
Just quickly, Chair. So just to be clear on the motion, is it to delegate to officers to grant planning permission, subject to evidence of the structural integrity of the roof to carry the weight? Also, can I ask that officers be given delegated authority to impose conditions on the grant of planning permission, because we normally impose.
Oh, yeah, because you haven't drafted any, have you? I suppose. Right, what was your idea? Any idea what they might cover?
I'll look to my left for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of conditions, it wouldn't be anything more. I mean, we'd look at what information we've got on the panels. Do we need anything more than what we've got? So yeah, there'd be the standard time condition, and then possibly further details on the panels. Again, members, obviously you've picked up from the report that it's not a listed building, but it is a non-designated heritage asset. So in terms of its status in the heritage hierarchy, it's very similar to a listed building. Obviously, Martin's outlined to you what you've summarised in your debate discussion. I think if you're identifying some harm, you've then articulated why you think that the benefits outweigh that harm in terms of the renewable energy benefits. So again, that can be recorded.
Thank you. I'd add the other benefits. Say that promoting sustainable development, because it is. Thanks.
Okay, you're happy, Adam. No, Dawn is next.
Yeah, I think seeing solar panels on a building is like an advert for the rest of us. Oh, I need to have solar panels as well. So I think it's a really good thing to be able to see them. But also, I think what's more important is a heritage building like this one. I used to walk past all the time. Yeah, I was wondering why I don't walk past it anymore. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, I used to walk past it a lot, and they've brought it to life. And if we're going to preserve some of these buildings, we need to give it life, and life is people. And we need to have opportunities for people to use these buildings. And they're old, they're difficult to keep warm. And as you know, as Philip said, I think it's really, really important that we get this. And it's a project that is a national project, based in Frome, so it puts Frome on the map, and I think it would be a brilliant opportunity. So, yep, I support.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. Susie.
I was just going to suggest that we could add to the proposal positive impact for the community and enhanced services to the community, because it's allowing them to carry on using the building.
That's great. I've got one other thing. I think Councillor Dunk, you're online. Did you want to say something? You're not down to speak, Mick, so you can't speak.
Oh, sorry, Chair. I'd love to. I just suggested that are they?
No, we can't let you do it. Sorry. Yeah, you got no. Okay, so we're coming up to 6 o'clock and we're going to have a vote. So I think everybody said everything they'd like to. So who is in favour of going against the officer recommendation and supporting the solar panels?
Unanimous.
Okay, that's unanimous. That's passed. Poppy, if you're still online, you've got your solar panels. Yes. Thank you. So I think we've got to move on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any appeals? Simon?
Chairman, there are 4 appeals listed. Again, members, given the time, if there are any questions that you've got on any of them, happy to answer. I guess the one that stands out is the second appeal. So it was an appeal against an application which is called a permission in principle. So for those of you that have not come across that type of application before, it's an application whereby the landowner makes an application for the principle of development. So we're starting to see, well, it was legislation that was probably introduced about 10 years ago, and I guess we probably get about 10 a year. So that's something you might have picked up when you were reviewing the appeals. The others are straightforward. Obviously, officer recommendation. The inspector agreed with the officer recommendation, so there weren't applications that came to committee. So there were officer refusals, and the inspector agreed with them. For the first two, the inspector didn't agree with the officer recommendation, but I can confirm the outcome of those appeals didn't result in any costs being awarded, which is something that sometimes are.
Okay, that's it then. We can go home. So I declare the meeting closed.